I won the hearts of two women at the same time. They loved me to the point of obsession. Sophia, the richest woman in the capital, was so into me that the whole city knew. Willow, a genius scientist, clung to me every day, asking for good morning and good night kisses, but later on, they hurt me again and again for the sake of some newly arrived intern. So I summoned the system, and decided to leave this world without telling them a word. Chapter 1. In a spacious villa, the system materialized, its panel glowing faintly. Host, your request has been approved, it said. You will completely exit this world in 15 days. Because you performed exceptionally well, you're allowed to take 2 things with you when you return to your original world. As I listened to the system's announcement, my lashes trembled slightly. I asked, can I take anything? Yes, host. Hearing that confirmed, I didn't hesitate with my choice. All right, I'll take Sophia's wealth and Willow's intelligence. With a soft ding, the contract was sealed. The 15-day countdown began on the screen. I opened my eyes and stared blankly at the photo of the 3 of us on the wall. Sophia, Willow, and I had grown up together as childhood friends. 20 years ago, I was brought to this unfamiliar world by the system after a freak accident. I was given the identity of an orphan in an orphanage. The system tasked me with making 2 women fall in love with me. Only then could I return to my original world. Eventually, I chose 2 girls from the same orphanage, Sophia and Willow. At first, I got close to them only for the sake of the mission, but as we suffered together and relied on each other, I genuinely fell for them. The orphanage was abusive and only gave us 1 meal a day. I saved my own food to share with them and survived on just water. We got into a top university together, and during one summer, the 3 of us worked ourselves to the bone, but the money we saved was only enough to cover tuition for 2, so I dropped out, letting them continue their studies. One time, we were in a car accident. I didn't think twice, I shielded them with my body, taking a serious hit and saving their lives. That day, both of their affection meters hit full. The system informed me that they had truly fallen in love with me. I had completed my mission and earned a generous amount of points, enough to return to my original world. Years of effort finally paid off. With the points, I could also redeem many things from this world when I went back. I should have been overjoyed, but at that very moment, both Sophia and Willow were at the lowest points in their lives, one crushed by a failed startup, the other stuck in a dead-end research rut. On countless sleepless nights, they would turn to me for comfort. The thing they said the most was, "George, you're all I have. Please don't leave me." After all we'd been through together, seeing them suffer like that, I couldn't bring myself to leave, so I delayed my departure and used all the points I had saved up. I exchanged them for business opportunities for Sophia, and intelligence for Willow. In just 1 year, both of their lives changed dramatically. Sophia rose to become the world's richest person, topping the Forbes list. Willow won a Nobel Prize and became a celebrated genius scientist. Our youthful dreams had all come true. It should have been a happy ending, but the story didn't stop there. A month ago, a fresh graduate named Makoto joined my studio as an intern. He was young and came from a poor family, so I looked after him. Over time, he got to know Sophia and Willow. Then, I started noticing some strange changes. Little things at first, like ordering an entire seafood dinner to cater to Makoto's tastes, even though they knew I was allergic. Or ditching my birthday celebration to care for Makoto when he had a cold. Or giving him the gift that was originally meant for me just because he said he liked it. Those small slights kept piling up, and I endured them all, until tonight. At my birthday party, Makoto deliberately pulled me under the chandelier and started speaking in vague, suspicious terms. I didn't understand what he was trying to say and turned to leave, but he stopped me. Just then, the chandelier crashed down, and both Sophia and Willow, without hesitation, ran to save Makoto. They left me to be crushed and bleeding on the floor. Despite my serious injuries, they didn't show a shred of concern. Instead, they scolded me for standing in such a dangerous place with Makoto. They asked if I'd done it on purpose, to harm him. I tried to explain, choking back the pain, but they cut me off. Defending Makoto. You mean to say Makoto planned all this to hurt you? Makoto is kind by nature, he'd never do something so cruel. Why are you slandering him? At that moment, watching the 2 women who had been through so much with me stand on the other side, I laughed. And then, I started crying. I didn't argue. I went home, bleeding, treated my wounds myself, and summoned the system. I'm done. I'm leaving this world, and I'm taking back everything I gave them. I want to see, after they lose all their wealth, status, fame, and brilliance, will Makoto, their so-called pure, kind, and innocent boy, still spare them even a glance? I'll be waiting for that day. Chapter 2. A few sharp barks yanked me out of my thoughts. I looked down to see Orange, rubbing against me affectionately. When did she sneak in? This dog was a gift from Sophia and Willow 2 years ago. Back then, the 2 of them had just risen to fame overnight and could have anything they wanted. One bought a manor, the other a castle. Both insisted I move in with them, and ended up bickering endlessly over it. In the end, I had no choice but to suggest buying this villa so the three of us could live together. This dog came home with us the day we moved in. They brought her back, laughing and saying they wanted to raise her with me until we all grew old. But now, I'm about to leave this world, and Sophia and Willow's attention is all on Makoto. Before I go, I have to make sure Orange has a new home, only then can I leave in peace. The next day, I contacted a pet agency and arranged to have the dog dropped off there for future adoption. After breakfast, I took Orange and left the house. By the time I got back, it was already evening. Before I even stepped inside, I could hear laughter and noise coming from the living room. Sophia and Willow, who had been missing for several days, were talking about something that had Makoto laughing nonstop. The moment I opened the door, all sound abruptly stopped. The three of them looked over at me at once, traces of laughter still lingering on their faces. After a few seconds of silence, Sophia finally asked casually, "Where'd you go? It's so late, and you're just getting back." Willow, meanwhile, had clearly noticed something else was off. "Where's Orange? I don't see her. I caught a cold, so I took her to the vet," I replied, tossing out a random excuse as I started heading upstairs. But Makoto suddenly called out to me with a timid tone, "George, things aren't very safe around my neighborhood lately." Sophia and Willow were worried about me, so they asked me to move in for a while. I wasn't surprised they brought Makoto home without telling me. Before I could say anything, Makoto added proudly, "Oh, and I mentioned I like sunny bedrooms." So Sophia and Willow insisted I take the master bedroom. "They even had all your stuff moved into the guest room." I turned my head and looked at him. Sensing my reaction, Sophia immediately stepped in front of Makoto and said, "Makoto's only staying here for a few days. Be the bigger person. Besides, about what happened last night, you were the one in the wrong, and Makoto hasn't even blamed you." Now that Sophia had spoken, Willow didn't want to be left behind and quickly chimed in too. It was Sophia and I who decided to let Makoto move in and switch rooms. "If you're mad, take it out on us, not him." Makoto stepped in front of them, acting like some kind of saint. "No, it's not like that, George. Don't blame Sophia or Willow. If you're angry, blame me. You can hit me or yell at me, I can handle it." Watching them rush to take the blame, I found the whole thing laughable. My face remained emotionless, but my tone was laced with sarcasm. I didn't say anything. "Why are you so sure I'd be mad?" The moment the words left my mouth, all three of them froze. Sophia and Willow stared at me in disbelief. "You agree with it?" Sophia asked, stunned. "Why not?" I replied. "This is your house. After all, whatever you decide is fine. There's no need to consult me." Hearing my indifferent tone, the two of them suddenly started explaining nervously. Willow said, "What do you mean our house? George, did you forget? When we bought it, we said it was a gift for you." Sophia quickly nodded. "Yeah, your name's the one on the deed. Of course your opinion matters. Now that you've moved all my stuff out, now you remember to ask my opinion." I almost laughed. I didn't bother arguing anymore. I just nodded indifferently. "Fine, I agree to let him move in. Is that enough?" Sophia and Willow exchanged a look, both clearly shocked, but I didn't care. I turned and walked into the guest room, looking at all the mess they'd dumped on the floor. I didn't even blink. I stepped right over it. I'd already given up on those two women. It was just a room, nothing worth getting worked up over. After washing up, I went to bed. The next morning, I got up on time to head to work, only to run into Sophia and Willow at the door. It was clear they had been waiting for me. Each of them was holding a beautifully wrapped gift. "George, we know you've been upset these past couple days. We didn't mean anything by it. It's just Makoto reminds us of you. Every time we look at him, we think of all the hardship you went through in the past. He's kind and pure, just like you used to be. That's why we've been so protective of him." Chapter 3, Pure and Kind. I chuckled and said, "Sophia, if you weren't the richest woman in the world. Willow, if you weren't a world-renowned professor, if we were still just the three penniless orphans we once were, do you really think Makoto would cling to you the way he does now?" Sophia and Willow both heard the sarcasm in my voice. Their smiles faded, and their tone turned cold. "Makoto isn't the kind of person who judges people based on wealth. George, why assume the worst of him? Yeah, he came from nothing too. He'd never look down on us." Hearing how firmly they spoke, I didn't feel like wasting any more breath. I casually placed their gift inside the hallway cabinet and headed for the garage. "You're right," I said. "It was my mistake for thinking too much." I opened the car door and had just fastened my seatbelt when the passenger side was suddenly pulled open. Makoto hopped in cheerfully, greeting me with a bright smile. "George, you left so fast, I almost couldn't catch up. Are you going to work alone today?" Sophia and Willow were both fighting over who'd drive me, but I didn't want to rely on them too much, so I turned them down. "Be a good bro and give me a lift, will you?" I ignored him and put the key in the ignition. But Makoto wasn't about to give up. He climbed into the passenger seat, ignoring the danger. "Oh, by the way, I heard they gave you gifts today. They really spoil you." "Man, I wish I had 2 childhood sweethearts who pampered me like that." I said nothing, eyes fixed straight ahead, ready to drive off. My silence clearly irritated him, but then something seemed to click in his mind. He grinned, opened his phone, and shoved it in front of my face. "George, did you see the post I made this morning?" I glanced at the screen. It was a photo of several fancy gift boxes, captioned with a cringeworthy paragraph. "Got a bunch of presents from 2 gorgeous big sisters. Can't even use them all. The only ones I don't like are this necklace and this scarf, so ugly. Might as well tie them on a dog. And today, the gifts Sophia and Willow gave me were that exact necklace and scarf. So this entire morning show was just to let me know. The gifts they gave me were the leftovers he didn't want." Finally, I understood Makoto's little game. If it had been the old me, I might have been devastated. I would have wondered, how could all the years we spent together mean less than a few months with someone like Makoto? But now, I didn't care anymore. Expressionless, I brushed his hand aside and said calmly, "Don't distract me while I'm driving." I arrived at the studio right on time and headed straight to my office. Then I called in Alicia, the assistant who'd been with me the longest. I took a file from my bag and handed it to her. "Alicia," I said, "you've been with me for 3 years now, haven't you? I'm planning to leave the studio entirely in your hands." Alicia's eyes widened in shock. This studio had been built from scratch by me. Every employee was personally recruited. It had grown steadily over the years. It was my life's work. And now I was just handing it over. It felt like a dream. She couldn't help but ask, "Why, George, did something happen?" I lowered my gaze and didn't explain further. I just said softly, "I'm going somewhere far away. I won't be coming back. I need someone reliable to take over. Can you do that?" Hearing that, Alicia didn't press further. She nodded seriously. After reading through the contract carefully and signing her name with solemn determination, she looked at me with visible reluctance. "George, when are you leaving? The finals for the design competition are in a few days. Are you still going? We've all been waiting for you to take the gold." The word finals made me glance toward my trophy shelf. For a moment, I was lost in thought. Because I couldn't afford college, I never had the chance to attend university. For 4 years, I juggled part-time jobs to support the 3 of us, and studied design by sneaking into classes at the local design school. With my creativity and growing reputation, I finally made a name for myself in the industry. This studio was the result of all that hard work. Over the years, I'd won every major design award, except this last one. Winning it would complete the Grand Slam. To walk away now, honestly, it'd feel like leaving a hole in my heart. After everything I'd been through, only I knew how hard this journey had been. So, seeing the hopeful eyes of my juniors, I made my decision. I would enter the finals. I would win the most prestigious design award in the industry before I left, to end this journey the way it began. It was my final promise to myself. Chapter 4. On the day of the final, I arrived early at the competition venue. Just as I reached the entrance, I spotted 3 all too familiar figures. Sophia and Willow were both fussing over Makoto, asking about his well-being. The moment he saw me, Makoto walked up, all smiles. Wait, didn't Makoto get eliminated in the preliminaries? Why was he here? He must have seen the confusion in my eyes, because he offered an explanation with a cheerful grin. "Oh, Sophia wanted me to gain some experience, so she invested in the competition. That's how I got a spot in the finals. Don't worry, George, with my level, there's no way I could be a threat to you. You're the top contender for the gold, after all." Willow gently tapped his forehead with a finger, her voice tender and warm. "Don't be so quick to put yourself down. The competition hasn't even started yet. Makoto, just give it your all. I believe in you. You'll do great." Encouraged by her words, Makoto stuck out his tongue playfully. "With the support of a genius scientist like you, good luck's definitely on my side." Sophia pouted, clearly jealous. "I encouraged you too. Why didn't you thank me?" Don't play favorites, Makoto." Watching the 3 of them banter so happily, I suddenly remembered a few years ago. It was my very first design competition. I had no degree, no reputation, just nerves and a crowd of unfamiliar faces. Back then, Sophia and Willow both dropped everything to be there for me. One massaged my shoulders, the other kept feeding me snacks, trying to calm me down. They were even more anxious than I was. Times had changed. That warmth no longer existed. I smiled faintly, then followed the crowd into the venue. The competition lasted 5 hours. After it ended, I packed my things and took a taxi home alone. 3 days later, the results were announced. Alicia was the first to call me. "George, your piece won first place in the competition." I had poured countless sleepless nights into preparing for this. Hearing those words, I finally felt like I could breathe. But then Alicia's voice faltered, and she continued nervously. But there's a problem. The organizers discovered 2 identical entries. They suspect one of them is plagiarized. One is signed by you, the other, by Makoto. And because you have a large fan base, it's already blowing up online. Plagiarism. My brows furrowed. I never imagined Makoto would actually have the guts to pull something like this. But I stayed calm. The truth will speak for itself, I said. I've been preparing that design for months. I have the original drafts. I can prove it's mine. But Alicia sounded panicked. Her voice trembled. It's too late. The situation's out of control. Just check the trending topics. George. As her voice trailed off, a sinking feeling hit my gut. I hung up and opened the trending page. Right at the top, #George plagiarized. I clicked into the first post. A video of Makoto sobbing uncontrollably popped up. Through his tears, he choked out, "I swear I didn't plagiarize in this competition. I might just be an intern, but I'd never do something like that. I know everyone loves George and wants to defend him, but please be reasonable. This entry is 100% original. I even shared some of the inspiration with 2 friends, they can vouch for me." There was no actual evidence in the entire video, but it already had millions of shares and comments. Why? Because of the 2 people he tagged. Sophia, the world's richest woman. Willow, a Nobel Prize winner. I scrolled through the comments, line after line of sarcasm and outrage. So you're saying George copied you? Give me a break. George has won tons of awards. Why would he steal from a nobody like you? 2 friends. Do you know who you just tagged? One's a billionaire and the other's a Nobel laureate. If they're really your friends, I'll chop my head off and play soccer with it. Most of the comments were mocking him, but then 2 tweets suddenly rocketed to the top of the page. One from Sophia, who retweeted Makoto's video with a caption, "I can vouch for him. Makoto didn't plagiarize." The other from Willow, who pinned the video to the top of her profile and wrote, "I saw the draft before the competition. Makoto definitely didn't copy." Seconds later, the entire page froze, and right before my eyes, the trending topic with my name was stamped with the explosive red-hot badge. Chapter 5. Sophia and Willow publicly vouched for Makoto, claiming he didn't plagiarize, which, in the eyes of the public, meant only one thing. I was the one who had copied. Within seconds, my inbox exploded. Private messages and notifications poured in like a tsunami. At first, a few were cautiously asking whether the plagiarism accusation was true, but as time went on, the messages got nastier, insults and hate comments piling on, each more vicious than the last. My hands trembled as I finally broke my silence. I posted one tweet, just a few words, "I didn't plagiarize." Within seconds, that post had tens of thousands of replies. The top comments read, "You didn't plagiarize? Are you saying Professor Liu is lying? She's a Nobel Prize winner, one of the most rigorous minds in the world. Why would she fake evidence? Miss Kim has hundreds of billions in assets. With her status, why would she go out of her way to frame a small-time designer like you? You call yourself a famous designer, and yet you stoop to copying a nobody. Shameless. I used to respect you. What a joke. George, get the hell out of the design industry." Makoto's fans, Sophia and Willow's massive followings, and waves of random onlookers buried the few feeble voices defending me. Just because they stood behind Makoto, public opinion flipped completely, instantly. Even before the official announcement, the internet had made its verdict. I was the one who copied. Makoto, the talented rising star, was the victim. Under pressure from the public, the competition organizers issued an official statement. Makoto had been confirmed as the winner of the final round's gold prize. My name, nowhere on the list. The moment the statement dropped, my phone lit up with non-stop calls. My studio sent a message. Every single partner we had signed with in recent weeks was terminating their contracts. Dozens of projects now faced massive breach penalties. My studio was on the brink of collapse. It all happened so fast, so absurdly, so violently, that my mind went blank. I never imagined things would spiral this far. I dropped my now useless phone and ran downstairs. Grabbing the landline, I dialed Willow's number, desperate to understand why she would do this. The phone rang for ages before she finally picked up. When I asked her, voice trembling with disbelief, why she had testified for Makoto, she only said one thing: "Makoto is pure and kind. He couldn't possibly plagiarize." I had to speak up for him. Then she hung up. I sat there, listening to the empty tone, feeling like a stone had lodged itself in my chest. I couldn't breathe. Clenching and unclenching my fists, I dialed another number, Sophia's. Before I could even speak, she cut in. "I know what you're going to ask. To me, it doesn't matter who really copied who. Makoto is just starting out. He loves being a designer. He has a long future ahead of him. I couldn't let his career be ruined. That's why I had to stand with him." Her words detonated like a bomb in my chest. I snapped. "So you don't even know the truth, do you? Then why speak up for him? You're worried about his future, but what about mine? Do you know what I went through to get to where I am? I didn't go to college. I had no connections. I worked night after night, drawing until my hands cramped, just to earn the recognition I have today. And now, because of 2 careless statements from you both, everything's gone. Didn't you once say you'd always support my dreams? This is how you support me. My voice cracked. Pain twisted my features as desperation bled into my tone. There was a long, suffocating silence. Finally, Sophia spoke again, quiet, tired, almost regretful. George, you still have me and Willow. We'll take responsibility for you. Take responsibility. Take responsibility. Is that their excuse for destroying me? Since when did I, George, need to be taken care of by them? I hung up. I collapsed onto the couch, staring blankly out the window as the sky darkened. The sun was setting, and so, too, was my life as I knew it. In the following days, statement after statement rolled out from organizations across the industry, everyone announcing the termination of their partnerships with my studio. Overnight, the studio that had once dominated the design scene vanished. Years of effort, gone. Just like that. I didn't want to accept it, but I had no choice. I pulled every string I could, running around to settle the legal fallout of all those broken contracts. To protect my employees, I formally announced the studio's dissolution. Then I used every bit of savings I had left to cover the compensation they were owed. Chapter 6. After the last person left, I stood alone in the now empty studio, quietly looking around. I came here with nothing, and I'm leaving, just as alone. A bitter smile tugged at my lips as I dropped my gaze, heavy with disappointment, and walked out step by step. In the center of the plaza, the massive screen was broadcasting the latest news, day and night without pause. As I looked up, I saw the live broadcast of the award ceremony for the design competition finals. Willow and Sophia stood center stage, graceful and radiant, smiling down at Makoto, who was holding a trophy and bouquet while receiving the cheers of tens of thousands. Because of the 2 celebrity presenters, the viewership count in the top left corner had already broken into the tens of millions. Under the gaze of millions, Makoto's eyes once again turned red with emotion. He sniffled and began his acceptance speech. As a newcomer, winning this award is the greatest honor of my life. I honestly thought I might never reclaim my own design. Thank you, Miss Kim and Professor Liu. Thank you, everyone. Watching him act like the tragic hero, I felt so sick I nearly threw up right there. I hailed a cab and went to the riverfront, standing in the wind for hours until the suffocating feeling slowly eased. By the time it was past midnight, I finally turned on my phone, silent for days. The call log was a sea of red, dozens of missed calls, all from Sophia and Willow. I opened WeChat, over 100 unread messages. I was just about to delete them all when a voice I knew too well rang out behind me. George, why haven't you answered your phone? It was Willow. Sophia was right behind her. The 2 of them ran over, panic written all over their faces. Grabbing my arm tightly, Sophia asked, "It's so late, and you're still not home. Are you still mad at us?" Willow added, "We've been looking for you for 3 hours. We were scared to death." Our hearts nearly stopped, watching them both speak at once, faces full of concern. I took a step back, pulling my arm free. My expression turned ice cold. "Looking for me?" I said flatly. "Shouldn't you be with Makoto at his celebration party on such a joyful night?" Their smiles froze. Sophia sighed and lowered her voice, trying to explain. "George, don't be like this. We only treated Makoto well because he reminded us of you. Back then, if we'd had the power to protect you, you wouldn't have gone through so much pain. Taking care of Makoto, it's just our way of making it up to the child you used to be. That's all. Please don't overthink it, okay?" I watched them scramble to justify their actions, and a mocking smile crept up my lips. I, George, am standing right in front of them, and yet they're trying to make up for me, through Makoto. What a pathetic joke, I replied. If you want to pity him, go ahead. Just don't drag me into it. I'm nothing like Makoto or any of those fake pure, manipulative types. Hearing how firmly I rejected Makoto, both Sophia and Willow's faces darkened. They instantly jumped to his defense in unison. George, if you're angry, take it out on us. Don't make things hard on an innocent kid. That same old line again. I'd heard it so many times. My ears were going numb. I didn't want to argue anymore. I flagged down a cab and told the driver the name of my hotel, but the 2 of them followed me inside. Sophia insisted the driver change the destination. Willow kept whispering in my ear nonstop. George, we know you're upset, so we already asked Makoto to move out. Please come home with us. Okay. If you don't come with us tonight, whichever hotel you go to, we'll buy the entire building. You know we have that kind of power. Wherever you go, we'll follow. I had no strength left to fight. I closed my burning eyes and stared at the system panel. Only 7 days left on the countdown. They said wherever I go, they'll follow. How unfortunate. the last place I'm going. Sophia and Willow will never find it. In the end, the cab returned to the villa nestled in the hills. I didn't say a word. I went straight upstairs and locked myself in my room, ignoring them both completely. After that night, perhaps feeling guilty, Sophia and Willow cancelled all their work and stayed home to take care of me. They cooked every meal themselves. They brought me countless luxury gifts, jewelry, and trinkets. They tried everything to cheer me up. Their attitude toward me was like it used to be, back before Makoto ever showed up. But I didn't react. I simply counted down the days in silence. Chapter 7. That morning, as soon as I got up, I found the living room packed with people. Willow walked up to me gently, her voice full of concern. "George, you've been cooped up at home and looking really down lately. We planned a party to cheer you up. There's a stylist and a designer waiting for you. You don't need to worry about a thing. Just dress up and show up looking handsome." I didn't want to go to any party. I just wanted to leave, fast. But when I was about to refuse, Sophia stood up and chimed in, trying to persuade me as well. Tired of their persistence, I gave in and let them do whatever they wanted. By the time everything was ready, it was already evening. I was walking toward the garage, just a few steps from the car, when I overheard two drivers talking. One of them said, "Did you hear? Miss Kim and Professor Liu are going to propose tonight. Who do you think Mr. Wang will say yes to?" My steps froze. Propose? Sophia and Willow were planning to propose to me tonight. When I heard that, I felt no joy, only disbelief, absurdity. But when we arrived at the venue, and I saw the roses filling the grand hall, heard the whispers of the main characters here echoing around me, I realized they were serious. I was just about to leave when, suddenly, romantic piano music began playing through the hall. Sophia, in a lilac dress, and Willow, in a flowing white gown, stepped into the spotlight. Each of them held a bouquet and a ring box. They walked toward me in perfect sync. Just as they were about to kneel, a rush of hurried footsteps echoed from the doorway. They turned around in unison to see Makoto, soaked from head to toe, holding a box of pastries, standing at the entrance. His excitement and joy twisted into shock and sadness the moment he saw what they were holding. Sophia looked stunned. "Makoto, why are you here? And why are you soaking wet?" Hearing her voice, Makoto's eyes turned red instantly. "I overheard you both talking a few days ago about craving pastries from that little shop near the orphanage. So I went and got them for you. It started raining out of nowhere, and I didn't bring an umbrella. I tried my best to protect the box. I just wanted you to enjoy them while they're fresh." He looked down, voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your proposal." By the time his sentence ended, tears were already streaming down his face. He covered his mouth and turned to run out the door. Everyone in the room was frozen in place by the sudden turn of events. Sophia was the first to react. Her expression shifted, and she quickly shoved the flowers and ring box into my hands before running after him. The moment she left, Willow followed suit, placing her gifts into my hands as well. She said, "George, wait for me. We'll be right back." But I didn't want to wait. I refused to wait. I walked out the front door of the hotel. It had started drizzling. Street lights flickered on, casting long shadows of three entangled figures down the pavement. Just as I stepped outside, I heard Makoto's sobs, soft, broken, desperate. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin your proposal. I know you both love George, but I just couldn't control myself." Sophia. Willow. I messed everything up. This was the kind of pitiful drama I'd become sick of over the past month, and I couldn't take another second of it. I shouted his name, "Makoto." The three of them turned to me in surprise. Then, under their stunned gazes, I threw everything I was holding, the flowers, the rings, right at him. "You want these so badly, don't you?" I said coldly. "Fine, take them. I hope the three of you are happy. Now stop crying, it's ruining the view." I turned to leave, not bothering to see their expressions. But before I could go far, Sophia and Willow ran after me, their faces dark with confusion and frustration. "George, what are you saying? What do you mean, the three of you? Don't be ridiculous. George, we don't have feelings for Makoto. Tonight was supposed to be a genuine proposal to you. But her words were cut off by a scream. All of us whipped around. A runaway electric scooter had lost control and was barreling toward us. In the blink of an eye, Sophia and Willow both darted forward, shielding Makoto and pulling him out of the way. And I was the one left standing alone, in the pounding rhythm of the rain. I was hit, sent flying 10 meters through the air. Blood soaked through the white dress pants I was wearing. From a distance, it looked like rose petals, fiery red, romantic, utterly tragic. Chapter 8. My calf was shattered, and a gaping, bloody wound tore across my back. When I woke up again, I found myself in a hospital bed. The only one by my side was Makoto. The moment he saw me awake, he rushed over. "George, are you okay?" I didn't expect Sophia and Willow to show up last night and protect me like that. I guess it's because they've known since we were little that I'm timid and they didn't want me to get hurt. That's probably why they didn't pay attention to you. Please don't be mad. Okay. Pain throbbed from my leg, and I didn't have the energy to deal with his passive-aggressive nonsense. I was about to call the nurse to change my dressing when I caught a glimpse of something around his neck. 2 protective amulets. I stared at them more closely and immediately recognized them. They were identical to the ones I had prayed for at Shijiao Temple 10 years ago, specifically for Sophia and Willow. I suddenly grabbed Makoto's wrist. What's that around your neck? Seeing my reaction, Makoto proudly held them up in front of me. Oh, these? Sophia and Willow gave them to me a few days ago. Before he could finish, Sophia and Willow walked through the door. When they saw me holding the amulets, both their expressions changed subtly, and they rushed to explain. George, don't misunderstand. It's not what you think. Willow and I, one's a billionaire, the other a professor. We're always surrounded by people. There's hardly any risk to our safety. Makoto's not in good health, so we thought he needed the protection more. That's why we gave them to him. Sophia nodded, adding, yeah, what happened last night was unexpected. We didn't protect you. That was our mistake. We promise it won't happen again. If you're upset, take it out on us. Please don't let your mind run wild. I'd heard enough of these half-truths and hollow justifications. When life's truly on the line, people act on instinct. They protect what matters most to them deep down. The reason they left me behind was simple. I was no longer the person they cared about the most. So why keep saying things to fool both themselves and me? I let go of the amulets with a bitter smile, my voice drained of strength. If you want to give them away, just give them away. It didn't matter. I'd be gone soon anyway. During my hospital stay, Sophia and Willow took turns staying with me. Every meal was brought to my bedside on time, perfectly balanced and nutritious. At night, someone sat by me through the dark hours, making sure I didn't hurt myself in my sleep. Once, while flipping through a magazine, I stared at an item a little too long. The very next day, it arrived at the hospital. As the days passed, my wounds slowly healed, but on the day I was discharged, they didn't show up. Instead, Sophia's secretary and Willow's assistant came, bowing politely and each offering some well-crafted excuse on behalf of their bosses. I didn't say a word. I simply followed them out of the hospital and got into the car that would take me home. As soon as I sat down, I saw Makoto's latest social media post. It read, went to the orphanage to do charity work, accidentally got hit in the leg. It hurt so much, I no longer cared where Sophia and Willow had gone. I closed my eyes. The system interface told me, I only had 3 days left in this world. With 3 days to go, I decided to erase every trace of myself from this world. I visited several schools, scrubbing off every word I'd carved on desks and walls. Then I returned to the orphanage, dug up the wish box I had buried under the tree, and tore every piece to shreds. After that, I made a trip to the temple and unlocked the love lock I'd hung years ago, then tossed it into the trash. Every place the 3 of us had left our footprints, I revisited. And then, I personally destroyed every single memory I once considered beautiful. Not a trace remained. Chapter 9. 2 days before the countdown ended, I cleared out everything in the house, everything Sophia and Willow had ever given me. I packed up and donated to the orphanage. All the photos of the 3 of us together over the years, I threw them into the fire, one by one, without hesitation. The joy of playing in the rain, the excitement of waiting for the sunrise on the mountaintop, the thrill of having our first Western dinner after getting our first paycheck. Each smiling face was devoured by flames, and with it, the memories that once moved me to tears were gone. The villa that had once carried all of our past slowly became empty. I looked around, then stepped out onto the balcony, gazing at the garden below that was now in full bloom. I couldn't help but recall the sight of Sophia and Willow, busying themselves in that very garden. Back then, I really loved roses, so the 2 of them, personally and painstakingly, filled the entire yard with rose bushes just for me. I still remember that day. The sun was shining, the breeze was soft, birds chirped in the trees, and the 3 of us stood among the blooming roses, chatting and laughing about everything and nothing. Now the roses were blooming once again, but the love was gone. Year after year, the flowers remain the same, but the people are never who they used to be. Who can say how many dreams have already withered, like fallen petals in sleep? I let out a light laugh, lit the fire starter in my hand, and dropped it. Those branches once full of romance and love were consumed in the roaring flames. On the last day of the countdown, I called in a cleaning service and had them remove everything in the house that was connected to me. Once they were gone, I logged out of every single account, and then pressed the reset button on my phone to restore it to factory settings. As the phone rebooted, the doorbell rang. I got up and opened the door. Makoto was standing there, smiling. George, what have you been up to these past few days? You've totally vanished. Sophia and Willow haven't been home at all because of me. You must be super jealous, really pissed off, right? Maybe because I was about to leave, Makoto's provocation didn't stir up any emotion in me. I was just calm. I asked, "Why should I be jealous or angry?" Seeing my blank expression, Makoto assumed I was pretending. He got even more smug. "Well, because now the world's richest woman and a genius scientist are both obsessed with me." Richest, genius. I glanced at the countdown, 15 minutes left, and shook my head. "Not for long." He blinked. "Not for long. What do you mean?" Makoto couldn't understand what I meant and wanted to press further, but I ignored him and turned to go upstairs. Seeing my indifference, a strange frustration flared up inside him. He rushed forward and suddenly grabbed my arm, then threw himself to the floor in a dramatic fall. Right at that moment, the front door burst open. Makoto's forehead hit the corner of a table, and fresh blood trickled down. Sophia and Willow immediately rushed over. One cradled Makoto as he sobbed dramatically. The other stared at me with bitter disappointment. "We've already explained it to you. There's nothing romantic between us and Makoto. Why do you keep hurting him again and again?" Hearing them both speak in unison, my expression remained calm, my voice flat. He staged that fall. It had nothing to do with me. Instead of accusing me, maybe ask why he's such a good actor. My refusal to admit guilt made both of their faces instantly darken. Sophia said, "You think he's acting? Makoto's been working so hard at the orphanage these past days, taking care of the kids, doing everything himself. He's so kind, and you say he's pretending. You think he injured himself on purpose? What could he possibly gain from that?" I let out a cold laugh. "What could he gain? Obviously, your money, Miss Billionaire, your fame, Professor Liu. He wants both of you wrapped around his finger." Sophia, Willow, be honest with yourselves. If you had nothing, if you were nobodies, do you really think he'd be clinging to you the way he is now? They immediately denied it, with absolute conviction. Of course he would. Makoto's not that kind of person. Meanwhile, Makoto, still sniffling and wiping tears, cried out even louder as if on cue. Hearing him cry, the two of them lost all interest in arguing with me. They scooped him up and rushed out the door. I stood still, watching their retreating backs, and gave a self-mocking smile. "Sophia, Willow, you'll find out what kind of person he really is very soon." Once they were truly gone, I looked over at the sofa. 2 phones were left behind, Sophia's and Willow's. In their panic over Makoto, they hadn't even taken their phones. I picked them up, unlocked them with their passwords, and went straight to the photo albums. Then I deleted every single photo of me. From this moment on, I no longer existed in their world. After everything was done, I sat down on the sofa and closed my eyes. "System," I called softly, "take me home." The next second, a cold, mechanical voice echoed through the room. "Confirmed. Host George is now exiting this world, retrieving the 2 agreed-upon items. Congratulations. Sophia's wealth has been successfully retrieved. Congratulations. Willow's intelligence has been successfully retrieved." Chapter 10. 10 seconds later, the person in the room vanished, and the luxury car parked outside the villa disappeared as well. The pause button that had been pressed was released, and everything resumed. Willow, who had been holding Makoto, and Sophia, who was driving, suddenly lost the support of their car seats and fell face first onto the road. The pain shot through their nerves to their brains, finally jolting them back to awareness. Looking around at the open street and realizing the car had simply disappeared, the 3 of them froze in place, exchanging wide-eyed, incredulous stares. Weren't they just on their way to the hospital? Where was the car? How did it vanish into thin air? Was this some kind of new paranormal phenomenon? The eerie scene sent a chill down Makoto's spine. He completely forgot about the injury he'd just faked and scrambled to his feet, supporting himself with both hands. He stammered, What the hell is going on?" That was exactly what all 3 of them were thinking. The question snapped Sophia and Willow out of their shock. Their eyes met midair, and then turned in unison toward Makoto, their confusion slowly giving way to suspicion. "Makoto, weren't you injured?" Willow asked, her voice colored with disbelief. It was only then that Makoto realized he'd exposed himself. He quickly pretended to feel faint, staggering and collapsing to the ground, letting out a feeble moan. It still hurts." "Willow, we need to get to the hospital." Sophia reacted first, standing up and preparing to return to the villa to get another car. Losing a car was minor, they could look into it later. Right now, Makoto's injury was the priority. But when she reached the villa and tried to open the front door with her fingerprint, the smart lock just let out an endless string of beep 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 sounds. After over a dozen failed attempts, Sophia's patience wore thin. She called the other 2 over. Willow tried her fingerprint too, no luck. After so many failed unlock attempts, the alarm triggered the community security system. A dozen security guards swarmed in, surrounding them like they were intruders. As they were being escorted to the security office, the 3 of them kept trying to explain, insisting that they were the rightful owners of the villa. But after checking the property records, the results shocked them to the core. The villa was listed as unoccupied, no registered owner. Sophia and Willow were beyond stunned. They kept asking for the records to be rechecked and argued fervently with the guards, convinced it was a system error. The guards had no patience for their nonsense. Treating them as suspected burglars, they handed all three over to the police. Even in the police station, Sophia remained defiant, confidently stating her identity. "I'm Sophia, CEO of Panda Corporation. That villa is legally mine." "You've got the wrong people." The officers looked at each other, confused and skeptical. Panda Corporation? Ever heard of that? Sounds fake. Maybe a scam ring. Faced with their growing suspicion, Sophia finally lost her composure. Her tone turned sharp, barely hiding her anger. "I'm the richest person in the world. How do you not know who I am?" That statement made every officer in the station glance her way, with the kind of look reserved for someone having a delusion. One officer chuckled. "Richest in the world? Isn't that still Elon Musk? This one's got a serious imagination." Another added. "Or it's just some new kind of scam. Better investigate thoroughly." The murmuring froze all three of them in place. Sophia was still here. How could the world's richest person have changed? Everything that had happened in the past 30 minutes was too much for Willow to process. She took a deep breath and stepped forward to announce her identity. "I'm Willow, recipient of the 124th Nobel Prize in Mathematics." "Surely, you'll believe me." Upon hearing that, one officer who had just taken a sip of tea spewed it all over his monitor. The entire room broke into laughter. "Nobel, Math Prize? Girl, are you still dreaming? You're the second person who said the Nobel has a math award. That's hilarious." Chapter 11. Even after leaving the police station, Sophia and Willow still couldn't understand what had just happened in the past few hours. How had they fallen so suddenly, from dazzling stars, admired by all, to nobodies scraping the dirt? And now, somehow, they were university dropouts and orphans. They couldn't accept the reality. Their legs gave out beneath them, and they collapsed to the ground, eyes hollow, drenched in cold sweat. Makoto, too, hadn't recovered from the shock, but being someone who never gave up easily, he still held on to a sliver of hope, even in the face of a reality that defied all logic. Abandoning his previous act of being injured, he crouched down, took their hands, and tried to encourage them. "Sophia, Willow, those cops probably don't use the internet, so they didn't recognize you. Try calling your assistants and secretaries, they'll clear all this up." Those words rekindled a flicker of hope in their eyes. They patted their pockets, only to realize their phones were gone. Makoto quickly handed his phone over to them. Willow dialed her assistant's number first, the number that used to be available 24/7, but now it was a dead line, unreachable no matter how many times she called. Seeing that, Sophia quickly took the phone and dialed her secretary. The call connected, but after hearing her speak, the person on the other end barked impatiently. "President Kim, President Koo, these days anyone can call themselves a CEO. Huh? What is this? A romance novel? You think you can boss me around? Are you out of your damn mind?" Click. The line went dead, being ridiculed in turn by the security guards, the police, their assistants, and now even their secretary. Sophia and Willow were stunned beyond words. They placed their last hope in George. With trembling hands, they hit the dial button. The three of them stared at the screen, holding their breath, watching each ring like it was their lifeline. After a dozen rings, the call connected, but instead of the familiar male voice, an icy mechanical tone came through the speaker. "Hello. This is System No. 1693. How may I assist you?" "System? What system? Wasn't this George's number?" The three of them stared at the phone, dumbfounded. They thought they must have misdialed and hurriedly called again, but no matter how many times they redialed, the result was always the same, that cold, mechanical voice. The repeated blows had left Sophia and Willow completely numb. Only Makoto still refused to give up. He flagged down a car and insisted on taking them back to his rented apartment. The whole ride there, he kept trying to talk them into staying strong. "Don't worry, it's fine. Sophia, Willow, something must have gone wrong somewhere. Just get some rest. Everything will be back to normal tomorrow." They slept, then woke. Day after day passed, but the twisted world remained the same. Elon Musk was still the world's richest man. The Nobel Prize still had no category for mathematics, and Sophia and Willow were still just two unemployed, unknown nobodies. The business tycoons who had once been Sophia's closest allies. She couldn't even get a meeting with them now, let alone a conversation. The mathematical formulas that had once brought Willow global fame. Now they looked like random symbols and foreign characters, utterly incomprehensible to her. But the hardest blow wasn't their sudden fall from grace. It was George's disappearance. Aside from the three of them, no one remembered the once renowned designer, the man who rose to fame overnight, only to vanish without a trace. He had evaporated from the world like mist in the morning. No records, no memories, as if he had never existed. compared to the dizzying fall from glory to obscurity. It was George's quiet, complete absence that struck Sophia and Willow the hardest, and was the hardest to accept. Chapter 12. The two of them searched the world like madwomen, desperate to find any trace of him, the orphanage where they had clung to each other for warmth, the campus where they shared their youthful days, the mountaintops and temples they once visited together, the villa where they had lived for 2 whole years, every place connected to George, every place tied to their past. They tried everything to track them down, but all they found were empty wish jars, scraped off walls and desktops, a missing lock, and a garden burned down to ash. Disappointment struck again and again. Eventually, Sophia and Willow were left dazed and disoriented, like trying to grasp a flower through thick fog. Was it possible that George, and everything that once was, had really just been, as others said, a long, vivid dream in the middle of their lives? But if anyone struggled more than Sophia and Willow to accept their fallen reality, it was Makoto. At first, he still harbored delusions of making a comeback. He brought up the stock market, laid out the Millennium Prize problems, trying to reignite their former glory. But reality struck back hard and fast. What he saw in their eyes wasn't brilliance or ambition, only a vast, crushing emptiness. He wished it was all a nightmare. He wished they could rise again to the top of the world. He wished that everything he had stolen from George still had value. But the truth was, everything he saw was real. They would never again reclaim their fame or fortune. What he had taken from George were just 2 penniless women, 2 broke women, living off his food, sleeping under his roof, yet their hearts were still with George. The men who had vanished like smoke, like rain into mist. Makoto couldn't take it anymore. When the point of no return was finally clear, on a cold night, when even the wind held its breath, Makoto threw Sophia and Willow out onto the street, before slamming the door shut. He spat out all the resentment he had bottled up over these past weeks. "I must have been cursed for 8 damn lifetimes to end up with you two," he shouted. "All you do is drink and smoke all day, never lift a finger, and you've burned through all my savings. Since you're so obsessed with George, then get out and go find him. Let's see if he wants anything to do with 2 useless wrecks like you." Only then, only at that moment, did Sophia and Willow finally understand. George had been right. Chapter 13. Makoto really wasn't who they had imagined him to be. He had only ever been drawn to their wealth and fame, and now that they had fallen back to being poor, unable to offer him anything of value, he tore off his mask of false kindness and revealed his true self. But they had no one to blame, not even him. They could only blame themselves for being so blind. Now homeless, the 2 women wandered the streets like vagabonds. Their hair was a tangled mess, their faces streaked with grime. They wore faded clothes and cheap plastic slippers, and their whole beings radiated a lifeless aura. Gone was even the faintest trace of the powerful, radiant, untouchable aura they had exuded just a month ago. No one knew how long they had been drifting, clutching half a bottle of cheap liquor they had swiped from a street barbecue stand. They sat at the riverbank, sighing endlessly at the moon. At that moment, both Sophia and Willow found their thoughts drifting toward the same person, the one they hadn't heard from in so long. Willow murmured, "George, where did you go? How could someone just vanish into thin air like that? I miss him. I miss how he used to smile and tell us the storms would pass. I miss how he would throw himself in front of danger for us. I miss the days we spent together." The pain of separation, the weight of longing, and the sting of late realization hung over them like a storm cloud. To numb the ache, they drank and drank, hoping to forget. But even in their drunken haze, George's face appeared, reflected in the clouds, in the moon, clearer and clearer, until they could no longer tell what was real and what was illusion. Willow, eyes glassy, took out a phone she had salvaged from the empty villa, and dialed that familiar number once more. It connected, but once again, only that cold robotic voice answered. Maybe it was the alcohol. But she didn't hang up this time. She began rambling into the phone. "George, where did you go? How could you leave us behind like this? You said no matter what happened, you'd stay by our side. So why did you break that promise?" The system on the other end analyzed her emotional rant. It identified key phrases and began processing the data. Warning, possible bug detected during last system reboot. Memory wipes of target subjects Sophia, Willow, and Makoto were incomplete. Danger level, high. Think tank analysis suggests critical bug density in current world. If a reboot is attempted again, risk of system collapse is imminent. Recommended solution, transfer the 3 target subjects to a new dimension. System has received directive. Initiating spacetime traversal protocol. Transferring targets from Tantail dimension to Verita dimension. Countdown, 10, 9, 8. Willow, too drunk to comprehend the strange announcement, still retained a mathematician's instinctive feel for numbers, and began counting along. 6, 5, 4. Beside her, Sophia, equally unconscious, murmured the final numbers. 3, 2, 1. And in that instant, 2 white lights flared up. One at the empty riverside, the other in the pitch-black rental flat. None of the 3 were aware of what had just occurred. When Makoto opened his eyes again, it was already noon. He had slept 12 hours straight, and still felt groggy. As though sleep hadn't helped at all, he got up slowly, brushing his teeth while lazily scrolling through videos on his phone. A news clip played. Panda Corporation just released a statement announcing it has secured the rights to a legendary wuxia author's works. The company will enter the gaming industry, beginning with development of a new. At first, Makoto didn't think much of it, but as the cold water hit his mouth, his brain finally snapped awake. Panda Corporation. Wasn't that Sophia's once mighty, then mysteriously vanished empire? Was he dreaming? Makoto slapped his face several times, ignoring the dripping water. He scrolled up to the previous video, and when he saw it, the unmistakable Panda Corp logo shining on a tall, familiar skyscraper, and heard the crisp pronunciation of Panda Corporation from the newscaster, he knew this wasn't a dream. No, everything from the past few weeks must have been the dream. If Panda Corp still existed, then Sophia must still be a billionaire CEO. Willow must still be a revered genius scientist, and he wouldn't have to live like some broke, overworked employee anymore. Excitement surged through his whole body. He twirled in place like a child, beaming. He tossed his toothbrush aside, did his hair, pulled out his best suit from the bottom of the closet, and with his last few bucks, ordered breakfast from a fancy Western restaurant. Then he headed straight to the riverside. After circling the pedestrian paths for a while with no sign of them, he was about to give up, until he spotted 2 figures lying on a bed of pebbles by the riverbank, fast asleep. From a distance, they looked just like Sophia and Willow, but why did they look like the broken down versions? What happened to the billionaire and the genius? Chapter 14. It had been a month since I returned to my original world, and by now I had grown used to my dual identity, the world's richest man and a Nobel Prize-winning economist. I lived in a villa perched on the most scenic hillside in North City, enjoyed breakfast crafted by a 5-star Michelin chef, and was flanked by bodyguards everywhere I went. Anyone I passed on the street would bow to me at a 90-degree angle. The dramatic change in my life left me sighing with emotion. If I had a second chance in that other world, I would never again play the fool trying to save the fallen. How utterly stupid. Thankfully, now I had an IQ of 180 and endless luxury at my fingertips. No more being blinded by petty affections. Why had I spent the 20,000 hard-earned system points I spent 20 years collecting on those 2 ungrateful traitors? Wouldn't it have been far better to use those points to enjoy life and fully indulge in being a billionaire genius? Musing on these regrets, I picked up Financial Weekly and studied the latest economic trends. After finishing my coffee, my assistant came over with my coat and began reporting today's schedule. Mr. Wang, you have a video conference at 10 and a live interview at 1. The agenda was packed but well organized, balanced between intensity and ease. I didn't feel the slightest bit tired. Right before the live interview, my assistant reported that my number might have been leaked. Dozens of strange calls had come in. I didn't think much of it and simply told her to change my number. After one last mirror check of my outfit and grooming, I put on a flawless smile and stepped into the studio, where hundreds of millions of fans were watching live. Hello everyone, I'm George, CEO of Panda Corporation. At that very moment, far away at the riverbank, Sophia, Willow, and Makoto froze mid-argument. The expressions on their faces were identical, stunned, mouths slightly open in disbelief, eyes wide with shock. That unforgettable voice, that familiar face, and that name, George, left no doubt. It wasn't a dream. The CEO of Panda Corporation who had mysteriously vanished and now reappeared, the one with the exact same name as George Wang, was him. What the hell had happened? How had George replaced Sophia and become the head of Panda Corp? All 3 of them instinctively rubbed their eyes, trying to convince themselves it was a hallucination. But no matter how hard they rubbed, even to the point of tears, the image on screen didn't change. Only then did they realize everything they'd experienced over the past month had been real. Faced with this incomprehensible reality, each of them was overwhelmed with different emotions. Makoto's bright future had slipped through his fingers like sand. Despair, bitterness, and envy consumed him. Jealousy toward the rival who had stolen everything he thought he deserved. For Sophia and Willow, everything they had lost had returned, but it wasn't taken by someone else. It had gone to George, the man who had grown up with them, the one who had risked his life for them. They were filled with shock, but also a deep sense of relief, and a kind of bittersweet gratitude. They believed, no matter what had happened, George would always be on their side. Without hesitation, they flagged down a taxi and rushed to the TV station. Makoto watched their figures disappear and instantly guessed where they were going. Furious at having his carefully built plans destroyed, he grit his teeth, hailed another taxi, and followed them. Chapter 15. By the time both taxis arrived outside the broadcasting building, my interview had just wrapped up. Surrounded by bodyguards and cheers from enthusiastic fans, I slowly made my way outside. The moment I stepped through the doors, I spotted 3 figures running toward me in the distance. They looked familiar. As they got closer, I saw their faces and instantly froze. Wasn't I back in my own timeline? Why were Sophia, Willow, and Makoto here? Could it be this version of the world had duplicates of them too? What terrible luck. I suddenly regretted not checking the lunar calendar before going out this morning. I didn't even bother signing autographs or taking photos with fans. I turned straight toward the car. Just as the door was about to shut, Sophia reached it first. Panting, face flushed, she grabbed onto the door and cried out, "George, where have you been all this time?" Willow arrived seconds later, playing the emotional card. "George, why did you leave without a word? Do you know how worried we were?" That tone of voice, it was unmistakable. They weren't just lookalikes, they were the real ones. Inwardly, I cursed the system for its incompetence, but outwardly, I kept my composed smile and responded not with words, but by turning to my bodyguards. "Please escort all unrelated individuals off the premises. Thank you." On the way there, Sophia and Willow had imagined countless emotional reunion scenarios, but this had never crossed their minds. Their heads swirled with 1,000 questions. But without needing to speak, they both clutched the car window tightly. Even as 10 bodyguards tried to pull them away, they refused to let go. Shouting, trying to awaken my memory. "George, it's me, Sophia, don't you remember? We grew up together." "George, I'm Willow, your childhood friend. We were inseparable." The crowd watching the drama unfold erupted with excitement. Phones came out, cameras clicked, my face instantly darkened. I was a public figure now. Every move I made would be scrutinized. I had suffered online mob attacks in my past life. I knew exactly how powerful public opinion could be. Seeing the situation spiraling out of control, I made a snap decision. I got out of the car on the other side and ordered my staff to discreetly bring Sophia and Willow into a different vehicle. My sharp secretary immediately grasped my intent. She opened the car door for me, put me inside, and then called in a crisis team to handle the scene. Within minutes, the blocked intersection was cleared. A dozen luxury cars sped toward Panda Corp headquarters. Even before I stepped out, I saw news alerts popping up on my phone. Clips of the incident had already gone viral. Headlines flooded in. George swarmed by obsessive fans. George's secret relationship exposed. Breaking, CEO George ambushed by unknown individuals. As I skimmed through the outrageous headlines, I couldn't help but admire the media's imagination. Still, I frowned, because in my previous life, I had died in a car accident. To come back into this world, the system had rewritten my code, allowing me to reappear with hundreds of billions in assets and a Nobel Prize under my belt. Everyone accepted my presence as completely normal, as if I'd always belonged in this world. But now, Sophia, Willow, and Makoto's reappearance posed a serious threat. They knew my past. They had drawn media attention. There was no way to deal with this quietly. I needed to act. So I made a call to the secretary I had left on site. "Bring Makoto in quietly." Chapter 16. Back in this familiar office, Sophia felt like she was in a dream. She looked out the window at the familiar riverside view, then glanced around at the sleek, modern decor inside the room. A wave of complex emotions flickered in her eyes. Willow, on the other hand, wasn't lost in thought. She was focused on the doorway, waiting for George to walk in at any moment. But after sitting there for 4 or 5 hours, with dusk settling outside, he still hadn't come. Both of them were beginning to grow anxious. They asked the assistant standing outside the door several times, but each time received the same cold reply. "Mr. Wong is handling other matters. Please remain patient." Over the course of a few hours, the earlier media storm was gradually suppressed, but because of George's unique status, while things remained calm on the surface, undercurrents continued to stir behind the scenes. Netizens, picking up on Sophia and Willow's few words in the video, began digging into George's background. Eventually, they discovered that the 3 of them had grown up in the same orphanage, attended the same elementary, middle, and high schools. Later, Sophia and Willow went to university, while George dropped out, juggling part-time jobs while self-studying economics. From then on, the trio seemed to have gone their separate ways. George used his savings from those years of hard work to start a small company. In just 2 years, he made a meteoric rise, founded Panda Corporation, and with his keen insight and brilliance in international economics, won the 124th Nobel Prize in Economics, becoming an instant global sensation. Now reunited with old friends from a shared past, yet with such vastly different statuses, the internet buzzed with speculation. People wondered what had driven them apart, And what would happen now? Many even let their imaginations run wild, guessing it was a love triangle gone wrong. When I came across that theory, my palms started sweating. It had barely been half a day and people had already uncovered this much. If I didn't get this under control, and those three spilled everything about my past, I'd be toast online in no time. Just imagining the fallout made me squirm. Still, like it or not, I had to face them. Know your enemy, and you'll never lose a battle. Just as Sophia and Willow's patience was wearing thin, the assistant finally received word and brought them to the conference room. The moment the door opened, the cold lighting and my commanding presence immediately unsettled them. After all, in their memories, I had always been the boy trailing behind them, a fledgling sheltered under their shining wings. Now, faced with this version of me, indifferent and imposing, their hearts skipped a beat. But in the end, years of emotion overcame fear. Sophia looked at me and softly called out the name from the past. George. Before she could say more, the assistant glanced up and sternly cut in. Ladies, this is the headquarters of Panda Corporation. The man in front of you is our CEO, Mr. Wong. Please address him accordingly. Sophia and Willow instinctively turned to me, expecting I would object, but I said nothing. Didn't even look at them. I remained seated, composed and untouchable. The men before them bore no resemblance to the one they remembered. Crushed by the pressure in the room, and the rows of bodyguards waiting outside, they finally gave in. Clear and formal, with a touch of distance, they spoke. Mr. Wong. Chapter 17. Only after the assistant closed the door did I turn and glance at Sophia and Willow. My eyes were unreadable, cold and stern. I said, we don't know each other. So why did you two barge into my event today? What's your goal? Assault, kidnapping, or inciting public chaos? They were both stunned. Assault, kidnapping. What the hell was I talking about? Seeing the suspicion on my face, Willow took a cautious step forward, trying to explain. Mr. Wong, we didn't mean anything by it. It's just that you disappeared for so long. We were worried. At her words, I frowned slightly and looked toward my assistant. He understood immediately and handed them a thick stack of documents. Ladies, Mr. Wong has been in North City for the past month managing a major acquisition. He's appeared in public almost every day. What disappearance are you talking about? Please be honest, or we'll have to notify law enforcement. They looked down at the pile of newspapers, all reporting on me, and their publication dates. It made absolutely no sense. They were sure that for the past month, both I and Panda Corporation had vanished. So where had all these events come from? A supernatural event? A time travel incident? The two of them exchanged glances, disbelief mirrored in their eyes. Willow was the first to recover. She gave the assistant a look and politely asked, there are some personal matters we'd like to confirm with Mr. Wong. Would you mind? After all that build-up, we were finally getting to the point. My heart skipped a beat, but I still wore the mask of composure. With a slight wave of my hand, I sent the assistant out. As soon as he was gone, Sophia clenched her hands and spoke, her voice low and steady. George, do you still remember us? Of course. I wasn't going to admit it. I shook my head firmly. The shock in their eyes was immediate. Unable to hold back, they began recounting our past, trying to stir something in me. We met in the orphanage. You even fought other kids for us. You scored incredibly high on the college entrance exam but gave it up for us. You became a designer, started your own studio. Listening to them talk, I felt absolutely nothing. To me, that other world was just a dream now, a vivid one. Sure, but still a dream. No matter how heartfelt their words, no matter how many memories they painted, I was unmoved, like watching a poorly written melodrama. They watched my face closely, desperate to find any flicker of recognition. But even as their voices grew hoarse, they found nothing. No warmth, no hesitation, just the growing impatience in my expression. Sophia and Willow finally understood. This was no mistaken identity. They really had stumbled into the wrong dimension, and this version of me truly remembered nothing. Chapter 18. I said, ladies, you must be mistaken. I don't recall ever having any connection with you. Please stop disturbing me. With that, I didn't offer them even the slightest courtesy. I called my assistant and had them escorted out immediately. Still, Sophia and Willow refused to give up. Their faces were full of urgency as they pleaded. George, it's okay if you don't remember us. Just give us a chance. Let us stay by your side. But before they could finish, the assistant arrived with two bodyguards and politely but firmly showed them the door. As the two turned back with longing in their eyes, clearly reluctant to leave, the assistant handed them a thick brochure and said smoothly, if you're interested in joining Panda Corporation, please go through our official recruitment process, but do refrain from taking extreme measures to harass Mr. Wong. Seeing the job fair brochure in their hands, something stirred in both of them. Whether George remembered them or not didn't matter anymore. They couldn't let go. They wouldn't leave him. Even if there was only the slimmest chance to get close to him again, they would take it, no matter what it took. Once they had been successfully escorted out, the assistant returned to my office and reported the situation in full detail. I nodded as I listened and immediately began planning the next step. Get in touch with the broadcasting station. I want to turn this spring recruitment into a televised job competition, live streamed across all platforms. Move fast. Make the promotion big. The assistant took notes rapidly, then rushed out to notify the relevant departments and set up a project team. Everything was falling into place. Only then did I feel slightly more at ease as I set out for the hotel. The moment my car arrived at the hotel entrance, my secretary came up to greet me, already waiting outside. Mr. Wong, per your instructions, we've signed a contract with Mr. Ito to be your personal image consultant. He doesn't know you're his employer yet, he's waiting for you in the lounge. Everything had gone smoothly, but knowing I was about to deal with Makoto still made my head throb a little. I rubbed my temples, adjusted my expression, and walked into the room with steady composure. The moment I pushed the door open, I saw him, Makoto, with a flattering smile plastered on his face, froze on the spot when he saw me. Since Sophia and Willow had fallen from grace, Makoto had lost his source of income. He'd been sending resumes everywhere, but for some reason, not one had gotten a reply. With his savings running low, his anxiety had grown by the day. He had originally wanted to tag along with Sophia and Willow to the TV station earlier that day, but the crowds were too large. He'd been stuck on the edge of the scene, unable to get through. After the commotion dispersed, he was suddenly contacted by someone asking if he was seeking employment. Assuming one of his job applications had finally been noticed, he rushed to the appointment. The pay they offered was surprisingly generous. He didn't hesitate for even a second. He signed the contract without even reading the details. He thought maybe, just maybe, his time had finally come, that someone had seen his hidden potential. He never imagined that the benefactor he had met was the very same rival he had once schemed against again and again. Looking at the contract on the table, then at my face, Makoto broke into a cold sweat. Guilt silenced him. I sat leisurely on the couch, fixed my gaze on him, and greeted him with a calm smile. Long time no see, I said warmly. Who would have thought, after all this time, you've ended up working for me. Chapter 19. Makoto's face turned ghostly pale. He started stammering. What do you mean by that? I picked up the thick stack of contracts on the table, very pleased with my assistant's efficiency. What do I mean? Obviously. Congratulations, you're now officially my image consultant. I heard you won a gold award in a design competition. I'm looking forward to your work. I said it with a smile, but it sent a chill straight down Makoto's spine. He seemed to already foresee the nightmare ahead and immediately tried to rip up the contract. I quit. Find someone else, he shouted. Typical fresh grad. So naive. I chuckled and handed the contract over to my assistant. He caught my drift instantly and spread out not just the contract, but the attached confidentiality and non-compete agreements. Mr. Ito, the assistant said smoothly, this is a 5-year binding agreement. According to the terms, terminating without cause will require you to pay 10 times the value of the deal. Your penalty for breach of contract is 8 million. For Makoto, that number was astronomical. Even if he sold himself, he couldn't pay that kind of money. Only now did he realize, this wasn't some golden opportunity falling into his lap. It was a trap, and he'd walked into it like a sheep into a tiger's mouth. The job hunting show, Let's Work Together, co-produced by Panda Corporation and Yomi Media, was announced shortly after. It instantly sparked massive buzz online. Why? Because Panda Corp's CEO himself would be present for the entire show, personally overseeing every step of the recruitment process. With George's massive public draw, resumes poured into HR like a blizzard. Among them were Willow and Sophia. Each of them chose a fitting position and submitted their carefully polished applications. Soon after, they received the notice. They had passed the first round and were invited to attend the next stage, the live-streamed interview. Overjoyed, the two of them took on multiple part-time jobs to scrape together enough money, rented matching skirt suits, and prepared themselves for the big day. The interview happened on a weekend. The entrance of Panda Corp was swarmed with people. Dozens of live stream rooms went live simultaneously, and over 100 million viewers tuned in to watch the grand event unfold. The stream with the most viewers, of course, was the main room where George presided. Throughout the morning, he interviewed 5 candidates. His sharp thinking and keen instincts earned constant praise from the scrolling comment feed. Sophia and Willow's interviews were scheduled as the final 2 sessions of the morning. At 11:30 a.m., they received the call. A coordinator led them toward the main interview room, watching George still inside. Mid-interview, both women couldn't hide the tenderness in their eyes. When the current interview concluded and they were about to go in, the coordinator stopped them. Apologies, the original room isn't available just yet, so we've temporarily moved your interviews to the main live stream room. The lead interviewer will be here shortly. Please wait a moment. They froze on the spot. Just then, George finished his last interview. politely said goodbye to the viewers, and walked out of the room, passing by Sophia and Willow. He didn't even glance their way. No flicker of recognition, no hesitation, not even the slightest reaction, just a straight path forward. The two stood there, staring at his retreating back. He never looked back, not even once, lost in the heaviness of the moment. They didn't realize that the lead interviewer had already arrived and taken their seat. The coordinator, holding the attendance sheet, called out, "Sophia, Willow, your interviews are about to begin. Please enter the conference room now." Chapter 20. Even though George had left the room, the fans were still buzzing in the main live stream. As soon as Sophia appeared, the comments started flying in. "Wait, who is that? She looks kinda familiar. Yeah, I think I've seen her before. Not bad looking. Is she some wannabe influencer trying to ride the hype?" Sophia couldn't see the barrage of comments. Her mind was still occupied with George's cold reaction just minutes ago, and her focus was completely off. The lead interviewer flipped through her resume and noticed she was applying for a product manager position. Immediately, they began asking targeted questions. "You wrote here that you have relevant work experience. Could you tell us about your previous job title and responsibilities?" After 2 years of being a CEO, Sophia responded reflexively, without thinking. "I was the CEO of Panda Corporation." The moment she said it, the entire interview room and the live stream chat froze. Panda Corporation? CEO? Wasn't that Mr. Wang's title? Sophia instantly realized she had made a huge mistake. The stunned looks on the interviewers' faces rattled her, and she rushed to explain. "No, wait, I mean, I was in charge of strategic decisions." "Strategic decisions? And what was your exact title?" The interviewer followed up. Expression unreadable. Sophia panicked. She didn't know how to spin it. The live stream chat had already exploded with laughter. "Bruh. How did this girl even pass the screening? Was she drunk? She said she was CEO of Panda Corp. Does she even know which company she's interviewing for? This has to be the funniest moment of the show so far. Total clown. Trying to get famous by being ridiculous. Huh. Thrown completely off, Sophia bombed her second-round interview spectacularly. She exited the room with a sullen face. Willow, seeing her expression, was about to ask what happened, but before she could, the coordinator called her name. With no time to get answers, she took a deep breath and walked into the conference room. Compared to Sophia's distracted demeanor, Willow was composed and professional, leaving a positive impression on the panel. "Willow," one interviewer said, "you're applying for the data analyst role. You noted on your resume that you've received several awards in this field. Could you elaborate on which awards those were?" With the panel and the entire internet watching eagerly, Willow didn't hesitate. "The Nobel Prize in Mathematics," she said calmly. The room fell silent. The comment feed was instantly filled with question marks. "Wait, what? Nobel Prize in Math? Are these two here to turn this into a sketch comedy show? Absolutely wild. These two are next-level abstract thinkers." I watched the comments roll by, knowing exactly where this was headed, viral, because I knew the truth. They weren't lying. Sophia had been the CEO of Panda Corporation, and in another timeline, the Nobel Prize in Mathematics did exist, and Willow had won it. But all their glory and prestige, they had come from me. I was the one who gave them wealth and brilliance. Now, I had simply taken back what was mine. The code for the Panda Corporation and the Nobel Prize was rewritten, transferred into this world, and now they belonged to me. But Sophia and Willow were still trapped in a beautiful dream, unwilling to wake up, unable to face the reality of having nothing. With these two ridiculous claims immortalized online, no matter what they said from now on, no one would ever take them seriously again. And that was the real reason I created this show. Chapter 21. As expected, both Sophia and Willow were eliminated in the second round of interviews, but they brought a 200% spike in attention to the show Job Hunting with Ichi. After basking in glory and admiration, how could they possibly accept becoming a laughingstock across the internet overnight? What made it worse was that they'd made such a fool of themselves in front of me. Unable to accept the outcome, they stopped me again, wanting to explain themselves properly, but I had neither the time nor the patience to listen to their pointless chatter, so I sent my assistant to handle it. The assistant simply saw them as two disappointed candidates who had failed the interview and immediately offered a solution. "Ladies, unfortunately, you did not pass the second round and therefore cannot work with President Wang. However, given the attention you've brought to the show, our company is willing to consider giving you another opportunity." That said, all positions for this recruitment cycle have been filled, except for 2, cleaning staff and security. Would you be interested in either? Cleaning staff and security. The moment those 2 job titles were mentioned, Sophia and Willow's faces darkened instantly. The assistant could tell from their expressions that they were not on board and didn't bother wasting any more words. She said, "Since you're unwilling, That's unfortunate. Please keep an eye on our official website for updates on future openings. As for when that would be, neither of them knew. And whether they'd even get hired next time, that was an even bigger unknown. The harsh pressures of reality, combined with their desperate desire to stay close to me, slowly wore down their resistance. After an intense internal struggle, Willow reluctantly said, "I'd like to try the security position." Seeing her cave, Sophia clenched her teeth and agreed to join the security team as well. The assistant checked her phone, then looked at her with a regretful smile and said, "I'm sorry, Miss Kim, the security position has just been filled. The only vacancy left is for a cleaner. Would you like to consider it?" Sophia initially didn't want to backtrack, but upon hearing it was the last remaining position, she immediately nodded and agreed. "Then I'll take the cleaning job," she said. Later, my assistant brought over the final hiring results for this spring recruitment. I flipped from the first page to the last and saw Willow and Sophia dressed in security and cleaning uniforms. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. There's no hierarchy in honest work, but those two always carried themselves with arrogance and pride. I honestly thought they'd never accept. After the initial surprise wore off, I put the matter behind me and returned to my work. During a break, my secretary brought over all the design drafts Makoto had submitted during this period. I skimmed through them and instantly frowned. What even were these designs? It wasn't that I was intentionally making things hard for Makoto, just that, from my professional perspective, these designs were subpar. In fact, they weren't even on par with a regular student's graduation project. I didn't find a single one acceptable. I sent all of them back to be redone. After the assistant passed on my feedback, Makoto completely broke down. He'd spent half a month burning the midnight oil, racking his brain to come up with these concepts, only to be hit with a total rejection. He had every reason to believe I was just tormenting him on purpose. Right there and then, he snapped at the secretary. Frustrated and angry, he shouted, "There's no way none of them are acceptable. George must have it out for me." Seeing that he still refused to acknowledge his own shortcomings, the secretary didn't waste another second. She brought him directly to the design department and handed all the drafts over to the professionals. The director of the Panda Group's design department was known for being brutally honest. Right in front of Makoto, he tore the designs apart, leaving not a single compliment. Makoto had never been humiliated like that before. He was so furious it looked like steam was about to come out of his ears. But faced with an entire department, he had no way to vent. All he could do was bottle it up. Watching his red eyes and the way he was biting his lip hard enough to draw blood, the secretary handed the drafts back to him and kindly offered a reminder. "Mr. Ito, according to the terms of your contract, you need to submit 10 approved design drafts this month, or you'll only be paid a base salary. There are 5 days left. Good luck." Chapter 22. At Panda Group, both security guards and cleaners are required to undergo strict training before starting their jobs. Over the past 2 years, Sophia and Willow had grown used to living the high life. So in the early days of training, they found it extremely difficult to adjust to the rigid rules and regulations. The head of the security team and the cleaning supervisor showed no leniency. When the two broke the rules, they were met with appropriate disciplinary actions. Their probationary salary of 4,500 yuan was docked bit by bit, leaving them with just 3,000 yuan in the end. With that money, the two managed to rent a tiny, run-down room, a place to finally settle down and avoid sleeping on the streets. After rent, the remaining money barely covered their basic living expenses. Even with the tightest budget, thrown back into poverty and rock bottom overnight, both Sophia and Willow felt a deep sense of loss and defeat. But whenever they were at the company, just catching a glimpse of George during their shifts was enough to ease the sting of all that suffering. Clinging to that one source of comfort, they endured the probationary period, officially became employees, and gradually came to accept reality. Willow was stationed at the front gate, with working hours from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., but she made a habit of arriving 30 minutes early every day, because sometimes, when George was busy, he came to the office ahead of schedule. She didn't want to miss a single chance to see him. Meanwhile, Sophia was in charge of cleaning the entire building. Working from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., she developed a habit of staying an hour late. Because George often worked overtime until the early morning, she worried that something might happen to him that late at night, and just wanted to look out for him a little longer. I knew nothing about any of this. In fact, I'd nearly forgotten the two of them even worked at the company, completely occupied with handling our new project. Since it involved the gaming industry, something I wasn't familiar with, I had been working overtime alone for quite a while now. I'd had several cups of coffee during the day, so by nightfall, I was actually wide awake. By the time I finally felt tired and realized I should head home, it was already 1 a.m. I never exploit my employees. The assistants and secretaries leave right at the end of their shifts. At that hour, the only light still on in the building was mine. I turned off the light, walked alone down the long corridor, and was just about to contact the night shift driver when I saw a familiar figure at the elevator. It was Sophia. She had already changed out of her cleaner's uniform, looking like she had just gotten off work. The moment she saw me, she quickly wiped the dejection off her face and forced an awkward smile. She asked, "President Wang, just getting off work now?" Faced with her overly intentional greeting, I stayed expressionless and responded coolly, The smile on Sophia's face froze, but she didn't want to waste this rare opportunity and kept trying to make conversation. She said, I just got off too. It's so late, how about I take you home?" I pressed the elevator button and politely declined. Sophia's heart sank, and her smile nearly faltered completely. We both entered the elevator one after the other, neither saying a word, the atmosphere frozen in silence. Outside, heavy rain was pouring down. As I stared at the relentless downpour, about to contact the housekeeper to have the driver come pick me up, a car suddenly pulled up at the entrance. The window rolled down, revealing Willow's face. She said, "It's raining, and you won't be able to get a cab right now. I came to pick you up. George, let us take you home." I was about to refuse, but after calling the housekeeper and driver several times with no answer, I reluctantly agreed. The moment I nodded, both women lit up with joy, rushing to open the car door for me. I ignored them and opened the front passenger door myself, getting in without a word. The driver, quick on the uptake, immediately understood and politely asked for my destination. Chapter 23. On the way. Sophia and Willow brought up countless topics, but I didn't respond to a single one. I closed my eyes, listening to the soft patter of raindrops on the window. The tension I had carried all day finally began to ease. Only then did the two in the back seat finally quiet down for a while. When the taxi stopped in the Villa district, I paid the fare promptly and opened the door to get out. Willow, sitting in the back, quickly caught up, opening an umbrella and holding it above my head. She said, "Don't get caught in the rain, you'll catch a cold." Since our reunion, this was the first time the two of us had been this close. Hearing her gentle voice again, seeing the worry and affection in her eyes, it almost felt like we were back 5 years ago. Back then, the indifferent to everything Willow only ever showed this kind of soft gaze to me, and the proud, rebellious Sophia who never listened to anyone, whatever I said, she believed. Back then, Makoto hadn't appeared yet. The three of us were still a stable triangle of childhood friends, having weathered storms together, dreaming of a future we couldn't yet see clearly. Back then, I used to stress over not having enough points, and feel sorrow at the thought that one day, I'd have to say goodbye to them. Through those eyes, I saw the dust-covered past, but the cold raindrops seeping into my ankles reminded me, it was all in the past. I looked away and turned toward the butler running toward me with an umbrella in hand. I spoke slowly, with a calm and composed tone. "Thank you. You can submit tonight's return trip fare to the company for reimbursement." And with that, without a moment of hesitation, I stepped out from beneath the umbrella that had been shielding me from the rain. The heavy rain hit my shoulders, but before it could soak my clothes, another umbrella quickly covered me. I was never someone who needed their protection. From the very beginning, I was the one sent by the system to protect them. Now that the mission is complete, my umbrella will never tilt off-center again. It will stand firmly above my own head, to shield me from the wind and rain, just for myself. I didn't wake up until noon the next day. As I stretched and walked out of the bedroom, my secretary, who had been waiting at the door, stepped forward to report next week's schedule. I finished my breakfast just as she wrapped up the report. I was about to go soak up some sun when I noticed a troubled expression on her face. I asked, "Is there something else?" She replied, "It's about Makoto. All of his design drafts over the past few months have been rejected by Director Chai. He's starting to give up on himself. At first, I thought Makoto was just overhyped, incapable of producing gold-winning designs. But judging by how things have gone, it seems he doesn't have any real skills at all. He can't even complete the most basic, simplest works. Is this really the standard of a top graduate from S University's design program?" I couldn't help but doubt it deeply. The secretary continued, "He also said he wants to meet with you. He claims a lot of things in the past were misunderstandings. Would you like to see him?" Misunderstandings? Glancing at the scar on my hand, the one left by a chandelier that had smashed down and still hadn't faded, I raised an eyebrow and let out a light chuckle. I hadn't really wanted to see Makoto, but after hearing that, now I kind of do. Chapter 24. An hour later, Makoto was brought to the villa by the assistant. We hadn't seen each other in months. He looked emaciated, skin and bones, with dark circles under his eyes and bloodshot veins across both eyeballs, probably due to malnutrition. Seeing him in such a miserable state reminded me of when he first came to the studio for an interview. He looked just as pitiful back then. At the time, I softened. Hearing Makoto tearfully talk about his impoverished background, I broke the rules and gave him an internship opportunity. At first, Makoto clung to me every day, constantly calling me affectionately. But after latching on to the more valuable branches, Sophia and Willow, he revealed his true colors. deliberately sowing discord between the three of us. Unfortunately for him, he misjudged the people, picked the wrong side, and after barely enjoying a taste of luxury for a few days, Willow vanished like a cloud. Thinking back on the highs and lows he'd experienced over these past few months, I felt both pity and ridicule, but I didn't show any emotion. I simply spoke calmly. I heard you wanted to see me. What is it? From the moment he stepped out of the car, Makoto hadn't stopped looking around. All along the way, his eyes roamed over the elegant garden, the grand and luxurious villa, the exquisite and priceless decor, his gaze filled with barely restrained fury. And when he finally entered the living room and saw George lounging lazily on the sofa, adorned in jewelry worth tens of millions, jealousy practically made his teeth crack. He thought, why does George get to live in happiness like this, while I have to rot away in a dingy rental room, day and night, forcing out design drafts, and if I stop, I'll owe a sky-high compensation fee. That poisonous envy flowed through Makoto like venom, nearly consuming the last of his rational mind. But he understood the truth of being under someone's roof. Sometimes you have no choice but to bow your head. So he swallowed his rage, forcing a flattery-laced smile onto his face. He said, George, long time no see. I actually came today to apologize. I was immature before. The moment I heard the word apologize, I couldn't help but recall the way he had once tattled and slandered with that syrupy, manipulative tone. I didn't believe for a second that Makoto was sincerely repenting, and I had no intention of giving him that chance. I said, no need, because I never considered you worth my attention in the first place. That one sentence shattered Makoto's fragile and brittle self-esteem like glass. He clenched his hands so tightly that his sharp nails dug into his palms, carving out deep red marks. The pain, the shame, the rage he'd been suppressing all this time surged up again. He couldn't hold it in anymore. The venomous emotions poured from his eyes, and he screamed furiously. Yes, I'm just a broke nobody who had to take out loans just to pay tuition. I'm not good enough, but what makes you so high and mighty? Weren't you also just a rat climbing out of the slums? You got where you are today thanks to Sophia and Willow. What makes you think you're better than me? Why do you get to flaunt it in front of me? You stole the lives they were meant to have. George, you will pay for it. Stole. Hearing that word, a faint smile curved at my lips. I slowly rose to my feet, looking coldly at the frail figure in front of me. I said, everything I have today, whether it's the wealth you envy, the status, or the fame, I earned it all on my own. It has nothing to do with Sophia or Willow. To be precise, everything they once had, I gave to them, but they were ungrateful, so I took it all back. Makoto, being born poor isn't a sin, and none of your suffering has anything to do with me. It's entirely because you're too greedy, willing to do anything for short-term gain, that you ended up like this. The one truly facing retribution isn't me, it's you. Chapter 25. For 3 consecutive months, Makoto failed to submit a single design draft as required by the contract. According to the agreement, this meant the termination of his partnership with George, and a penalty fee of 8 million yuan. When he learned this on the way back, the already fragile defense line in Makoto's mind completely collapsed. When he first got the job, he thought fate had finally shown him mercy and offered a way forward. He never expected that waiting for him was a deliberately constructed trap, a cage meant to imprison him for the rest of his life. Looking at the contract with his own signature on it, he couldn't stop thinking about George's final words to him before he left the villa. Last time, during the design competition, the mistakes you made were covered up by Sophia and Willow. But unfortunately for you, they're both struggling just to survive now. I doubt they'll have the time or strength to bail you out of this compensation fee. You're an adult. Before signing that contract, did it never occur to you that someone like you might not be capable of taking on such a massive job? The person seeking revenge on you wasn't me. It was your own bloated, ravenous greed. When George said this, the smugness in his eyes and the faint smile at the corners of his lips infuriated Makoto far more than the numbers on the page ever could. Makoto snapped. He ripped the thick contract into shreds like a madman. His entire face flushed red from fury, veins bulging and throbbing at his temples. 8 million. 8 million. He hadn't slept for a moment in over 24 hours. Those countless zeros kept looping in his mind, making it impossible for him to stay calm. If he took on this debt, he would be trampled beneath George's feet for the rest of his life. That thought pushed him into total despair. He even started contemplating suicide. But what good would dying do? George would still be the high and mighty rich young master, still living a life of luxury and privilege, still worshipped by everyone. Why should he get to live carefree, while Makoto had to die in silence? No, he's the one who should die. George should be the one to die. Once that thought took root, it anchored itself deep inside Makoto's mind. He began laughing uncontrollably, eyes filled with madness and darkness. It was as if he could already see George's shocked and despairing expression at the moment of death. The summer solstice marked the 3rd anniversary of Panda Group's founding. To celebrate, The company held a grand ceremony at the headquarters campus. Midway through the event, I had drunk too much and was feeling groggy. I slipped away from the crowd to sober up. The summer night breeze was heavy with heat, whipping through my hair and blurring my vision. As I squinted and pushed the strands out of my face, I suddenly heard someone calling my name from behind. I turned around and saw Sophia and Willow running toward me. They were smiling as they ran, looking no different than they had when we were 17. But unfortunately, I'm not 17 anymore. I wasn't drunk enough to forget that, so I returned to my usual cold, distant expression, the one I used when facing strangers. When I lifted my head again with that indifferent face, I saw both Sophia and Willow frozen in terror. I followed their gaze and saw a car speeding toward me, less than 10 meters away. The alcohol had dulled my senses. By the time I realized that the driver, Makoto, was trying to kill me in revenge, the car was already right in front of me. Just as I thought I was about to be hit by a car again for the third time in my life, a powerful force suddenly shoved me aside. I landed in a flower bed, with only minor injuries to my arms and legs. I was otherwise unharmed. Makoto was cornered by several police cars that had been pursuing him and was arrested on the spot, shackled in handcuffs. As for Sophia and Willow, who had thrown themselves in front of me and been hit by the car, they were flung far, far away, lying now in pools of blood. The horrific scene was eerily similar to the car accident 2 years ago that nearly took my life. Bright red blood poured from their bodies, seeping into the dark asphalt. From a distance, it looked like countless still rivers, never to flow again. After I successfully conquered the infatuated female supporting role, Willow, I married her. Life after marriage, though occasionally filled with conflicts, was generally peaceful and happy. That was until I heard that the male lead had divorced. Willow cried on the rooftop all night. That's when it dawned on me. The fate of the infatuated female supporting role is to wait for the male lead to turn back, a destiny that no one can change. So, I gracefully exited the scene and left alone. When we met again, it was at my wedding with my fiancée. Returning to our country, Willow, who was her best friend, was also the bridesmaid at our wedding. Chapter 1. Anna and I returned to our home country to hold our wedding, but unexpectedly, she got into a car accident. I rushed to the hospital in a panic, and when I saw her with a flushed face, I angrily asked, "Why are you driving after drinking? Why didn't you let me know so I could pick you up? Don't you plan on getting married anymore?" Anna straightened up and leaned into my arms, pouting and acting spoiled. "Hubby, I was wrong. Okay, I thought you've been so busy lately. Besides, it was my friend driving. She wasn't drinking. Who would have known something like this would happen?" As soon as she finished speaking, there was a sound from the next bed. My fiancé yanked aside the curtain and said irritably, "Is she awake? Good. Then hurry up and tell my husband the truth. If he gets mad and doesn't want me anymore, you're dead." I sighed helplessly. Even at a time like this, she's still so carefree. Her friend remained silent. Anna glanced over, and just one look made her frown. She disapprovingly said, "Willow, what are you looking at?" Upon hearing this name, my heart tensed. Could it be? My body stiffened. I slowly turned around. The moment I locked eyes with the woman, my breath hitched. Willow, my ex-wife, the woman I once tried to conquer. Chapter 2. When I arrived in this world, the male and female leads had already developed feelings for each other. Willow was very depressed, and her grades had plummeted. I had to follow the system's requirements to conquer her in order to survive. For this, I used every means possible. She liked the male lead, a sunny, cheerful, and warm guy. So, I tried to mold my personality in that direction. Every day, I relentlessly tried to talk to her, bring her breakfast, surprise her on holidays. Even if she gently rejected me, I pretended not to understand, persistently following her around. But in reality, I was a quiet, introverted person. No matter how hard I tried to act, it was always superficial in the end. I once thought that conquering her was hopeless. Then one day, the system suddenly spoke. "Host, your conquest value has reached 100. Congratulations. You have obtained permanent residency in this world." It said that, then left. I couldn't figure out what caused my success. In my excitement, I still felt uneasy. I feared it was just a dream. Willow, sensitive as always, noticed my emotions. Under the sunlight, her smile was warm and gentle. She said, "George, just be yourself. I really like you." It turned out that she had already seen through the awkwardness and embarrassment I felt every time I threw myself into it. From then on, we became much more comfortable around each other. Without the conquering task, our feelings only deepened. After we graduated from college, we got married. Between work, we did chores together, watched movies together. A slow and steady life was the best way for us to live. One night, she received a call. On the other end was a low, despondent male voice. I knew who it was. The male lead, Makoto. He had divorced the female lead. Willow got up and went out, crying on the rooftop all night. Afterward, she quit her job and found a new one, leaving early and coming home late every day. It wasn't until I went to pick her up from work that I accidentally found out she was seeing him again. Willow had become Makoto's assistant. I couldn't tell if I was more sad or relieved. I thought maybe it was time for me to change my way of life. We didn't like to argue, so when I proposed a divorce, she didn't hesitate to agree. As for the division of assets, she voluntarily said she didn't need anything except what was rightfully hers. So, with the bonus from my successful conquest, I could say that I had gained a new life through her, without much of the struggle I had expected. I sincerely wished her happiness, and 5 years later, I found my own happiness, but fate had other plans. Willow is the best friend Anna mentioned before returning to her country. Chapter 3. The intensity of Willow's gaze on my face was too strong to ignore. Even Anna noticed something was off. She furrowed her brows, and her voice became cold. Anna asked, "Do you know George?" Hearing my name, Willow's lashes fluttered. Her pale lips lost even more color, but I spoke first. "Oh, we were high school classmates. We've met a few times." Willow's emotions quickly returned to normal. She propped herself up with one hand and sat up, giving me a polite smile. She said, "George, long time no see." Anna's expression softened a bit, but she wrapped her arm around mine. She deliberately showed off the diamond ring on her finger. It was like she was declaring ownership or perhaps issuing a warning. She shot me a glare and said, "She's not as pretty as me. Stop looking at her." I couldn't help but laugh. The tense atmosphere gradually eased. I didn't look at Willow anymore. It was as if we were just strangers who had crossed paths a few times. Anna had just a few minor scratches. Nothing serious. After I finished the discharge paperwork for her, I turned around, and Willow was right behind me. Her right hand was in a cast, and she looked a little worn out. Chapter 4. I said, "We'll talk about our past once Anna and I go abroad. Otherwise," with her personality. I pressed my fingers to my temples, feeling a bit helpless. Anna was someone who was very clear about her likes and dislikes. Her emotions were always written all over her face. She knew I had been married before, but she didn't know that my ex-wife was Willow. I was worried that if I told her now, it would cause conflict between the two of them, and it might even lead to more trouble. Willow suddenly spoke. "Do you really like her?" Her question caught me off guard. I hesitated for a moment and replied, "Yeah." It still felt weird talking about this with an ex. The air went silent for a moment. I had just stood up when a man's figure rushed toward us. He passed by me and went straight to Willow, naturally pulling her in to check on her. The man frowned and said, "Willow, why didn't you tell me about the car accident? Is your hand injured? Is it serious? Will it affect your work?" It was Makoto. Time had passed, but he was still as handsome and charming as ever, though now with a bit more maturity and composure. Willow gently pushed him away. She said, "I'm fine." Makoto paused, and only then did he notice me. His expression changed slightly, but he forced a smile. He said, "George, long time no see." I nodded, thought for a moment, and decided to explain. "We just bumped into each other and chatted a bit. I'm back here to get married." He nodded and said, "I see." He subtly let out a sigh of relief. Willow bit her lip, and her left hand, which was resting at her side, curled slightly. Chapter 5. That evening, Anna leaned against me while we watched a horror movie. The plot was so boring that neither of us was very interested. I wasn't sure whether I should tell her now, but Anna suddenly spoke up. She said, "Let's not have Willow as my maid of honor." I inexplicably breathed a sigh of relief. I asked her, "What's wrong?" Anna nudged my neck with her nose. She said, "She's injured. It's inconvenient, and it has bad connotations. It might even jinx our perfect love." I looked at her in surprise. "You're so superstitious." She snorted. "You don't understand a woman's intuition." She added, "And the way she looks at you is off. If I weren't so sensitive, there'd be no need to continue calling her a best friend." I expressionlessly turned my gaze away. It seemed better to wait until after the wedding to talk about it. Anna had been living abroad for a long time. Now that she was back, of course, she wanted to catch up with her friends, but I didn't want to see Willow again. I barely went. Actually, when we first got married, hardly anyone knew. Neither of us liked attention, so we went straight to our honeymoon, treating it as a destination wedding. We didn't even show ourselves on WeChat. It was almost like we were secretly married. After being rejected so many times, Anna gave me a pitiful look and said, "Hubby, just go with me once, please. Otherwise, I'll be so lonely." I raised an eyebrow. "Aren't you afraid I'll run into Willow?" She shook her head. "I didn't invite her. She's just an old friend from high school. I don't know her." I couldn't resist her almost tearful look, so I agreed. When we entered the private room, sure enough, there were only unfamiliar faces. I relaxed. I listened as they joked about Anna's embarrassing moments. The atmosphere was warm and cheerful, until Willow pushed the door open. Makoto followed her in, looking like he hadn't stopped her. Chapter 6. When Anna saw that Willow came with Makoto, her expression softened a bit. Anna scolded. "Your injury's not healed. Why are you running around?" But Willow replied coldly. "It's not my leg that's hurt, so why can't I walk?" There was a hint of tension in her words, and, of course, when she said this, her gaze fell on me. The room fell silent. No one knew what was happening. Anna furrowed her brows, blocking Willow's gaze, and, holding back her temper, said, "How did you know we were here?" A voice from outside the door suddenly interrupted, full of mock reproach. "Of course, I told her. That brat. I've invited you so many times, but you never show up. Now that you have a man, you don't need us old friends anymore." Huh. I tightened my breath. It was one of the few people who knew that Willow and I had been married. I looked up and locked eyes with Freya. She staggered in surprise. Her mouth dropped open. "What the hell? George, it's you." Anna turned her head, her expression icy. "You know him." Freya realized something was wrong and tried to cover it up. She stammered. "We've met a few times. Just surprised. That's all." Ha. Anna's lips turned pale, her fingers gripping the corner of her clothes, her body stiff as a drawn bow. Someone tried to step in to smooth things over. Unexpectedly, Anna didn't press further. She said, "It's too late today. We'll skip the next round. I'm going home with my husband now." I stood up and took her outstretched hand. Feeling her tight grip, I realized how angry she truly was. I kept a calm expression, offering an apologetic smile to everyone. I said, "Sorry, we'll catch up another time." Willow's gaze moved away from our tightly held hands. She seemed like she had been drinking, her eyes red. She said, "He's my ex-husband." Chapter 7. Her calm voice was like a spark falling into a powder keg. It ignited the anger that was already about to boil over. Anna suddenly yanked her hand away. She slapped Willow hard across the face. Breathing heavily, she yelled, "Why are you bringing this up now? What are you trying to say?" Makoto stepped in front of Willow, frowning. "Anna, what are you doing?" Willow's still injured. Anna pulled her hand back and coldly sneered. "She's trying to seduce my husband. She deserves it." Makoto pointed at Anna angrily. "Are you out of your mind? What nonsense are you talking about? They're in the past. You all grew up together." Makoto glared at Anna, but Willow brushed him off. Her gaze moved past the crowd, landing squarely on my face. Our eyes met, and the calmness was gone. "It's not the past," she said. Her voice was soft, almost as if she were speaking to herself, but it was clear enough for everyone to hear. The room was deathly silent. Freya covered her face, unable to watch. Makoto looked at her in shock. His face turned pale, his lips trembling, but he still couldn't speak. Willow stood up and walked toward Anna. She ignored the swelling on her cheek, her eyes filled with a frustration I had never seen before. She bit her lip and said, "Trying to seduce your husband," she continued. "He was my husband. You're the one who ruined someone else's marriage." Anna, burning with rage, shouted, "Willow, go to hell." In the next second, she slapped her again. Each slap was harder than the last, although Willow's hand was in a cast, making her unable to fight back. She wasn't willing to give up. Constantly cursing, the two of them tore into each other right in front of everyone. This time, Makoto didn't intervene. Freya rushed forward to separate them, her face full of concern. "Stop, Anna. Willow's still hurt. What if you make it worse?" When her attempts to stop them failed, she looked at me for help. "George, please, make your wife stop." I coldly smiled. I said, "Let them continue. It's better if one of them gets knocked out." Both of them instantly froze. Chapter 8. The cool night breeze carried the salty scent of the river. It helped to disperse some of the anger that was still burning inside me. I looked coldly at the woman across from me, still injured, her face now with new marks. I asked, "Are you sober now?" She said, "I'm sorry." Willow lowered her gaze, not daring to look at me. I almost laughed in disbelief. I said, "Is this apology what I wanted? I thought I made myself clear that day." I inhaled deeply. I thought we both understood it was best to avoid certain situations. I had tried my best to avoid this kind of thing from happening, but what did she do? I looked at the shimmering river, then took a deep breath. I said, "Willow, I really don't understand what you're thinking. Why make everyone feel so uncomfortable?" Her voice choked. "I don't understand either. Just like I don't understand why you could leave so calmly back then. 5 years, with no word from you." Willow lifted her gaze, and her whole demeanor seemed drowned in intense sadness. She said, "George, all these years, I've been wondering, did you really ever love me?" I was stunned. I asked, "Does it even matter to say this now?" She said, "I want an answer." Her moist eyes stubbornly locked onto mine. I glanced over at Anna, who was leaning against the car nearby. The wind picked up again, almost as if it brought her restlessness with it. Willow followed my gaze. The emotions in her eyes became even more obscure. I told her, I once loved you. Later, you became my comfort zone, my habit, like bottled water, but it was never to the point where I couldn't let go. Chapter 9. Willow and I traveled to many countries for our honeymoon. When we arrived on a tropical island, the tour guide said it was a famous paragliding spot. This was a thrilling activity I had never tried before. The colorful arcs in the blue sky, accompanied by the cries of exhilaration. My heart raced, and my body started to heat up. I was eager to try it, but Willow grabbed my arm and said, "It's too scary, can we do something else?" Yet her gaze never left the stunning view for a long time. I could clearly see the nostalgia in her eyes. Makoto had once shown me pictures of them growing up together. There was one of them paragliding when they were 15. I was curious, at that moment, was she afraid? Or was she secretly cherishing the unique memory they shared? Later, I understood. Love becomes profound through differences. Willow was an outstanding interior designer, but after we got married, she didn't get involved in the decoration of our wedding home. At that time, I had a friend who mentioned how particular his fiancée was about the details of their wedding home's design, and I thought it was hard to understand. But after Makoto's divorce, Willow meticulously helped him design his new place. Every night, as she conceptualized the room designs, her eyes sparkled with a joy brighter than stars. That's when I realized she was designing their home according to their preferences because she wanted to have a long future with him. Makoto's ex-wife, who was the female lead of this world, came to see me once. She looked at me with pity. She said, "Your wife spends all her time with the men she once loved for years, and you don't mind at all." When Willow found out about this, she explained the situation to me. She said, that woman cheated on Makoto, but kept clinging to him, saying that since Makoto hadn't thrown away his things, he must still have feelings for her. That's why I wanted to help Makoto change his home. Hubby, don't misunderstand. She rarely showed signs of panic. I spoke gently. It's okay, I don't mind. Willow seemed momentarily stunned. I truly didn't mind. I've always been a passive person. I measure my feelings based on how others feel toward me. Just like her feelings toward me and Makoto always fluctuated, with some parts lighter and others heavier. My feelings for her were also like that. When Willow's feelings for me were the strongest, I loved her. Gradually, love turned into a habit, and living a simple life together seemed fine. But now, I felt more like I was embracing the freedom of breaking free from the chains. Both the male and female leads could break free from the established path and choose a different life. Why should I continue living this boiling frog life just out of habit? When the comfort zone is no longer comfortable. When habits no longer serve life. When I realize that bottled water isn't irreplaceable like tap water, and it's not as refreshing as beer or soda. I knew it was time to change my way of life. On our third wedding anniversary, Willow had prepared a special dinner. When she saw me return empty-handed, she just frowned slightly. She said, "Tonight, it's just the two of us." I have something to say. We were still in sync, as always. My heart raced, and my body began to heat up. Just like when I saw the paragliders, except this time, I would take action. I nodded and said, "I also have something to say to you." In her expectant gaze, I smiled and pulled out a divorce agreement. I said, "Willow, let's get a divorce." Chapter 10. What did you say? Because whoever looks at you now seems like they're about to fall apart. Anna casually squeezed my hand, seeming unconcerned. But her tone couldn't hide the underlying bitterness. I could tell she was upset, so I held her hand tightly. "Do you want to know?" I asked. The driver raised the partition without a word. She blinked, turned her head away, yet couldn't hide the sense of grievance in her eyes. She said, "Never mind. It wasn't convenient to talk in the car anyway." I glanced at our hands, tightly intertwined, unwilling to let go, so I decided to leave it at that. When I input the gate code, the chandelier in the center of the hall lit up. At that instant, Anna threw herself into my arms like a koala, hanging onto me and kissing me. Anna had always been the more passive one, but today her emotions were unusually intense. Her kiss was fiery and urgent, tinged with a hint of panic, as though she were refusing to wake up from a dream destined to be lost. So I lifted her up onto the entrance cabinet, and we deepened the kiss. After the kiss ended, the lights went out, and the room returned to darkness. The house was quiet, with only the sound of our intertwined breathing. Her hands were on my shoulders, trembling lightly, as though she was trying to calm her rapidly beating heart from lack of oxygen. Suddenly, I felt a slight weight on my neck. A cool sensation brushed against my skin. It was Anna's tears. I asked, "What's wrong?" She turned her face away, not wanting me to see her cry. After a long time, I finally heard her soft voice. She said, "George, you won't leave me again, will you?" Chapter 11. 5 years ago, after the divorce and leaving the country, The first thing I did was complete the paragliding challenge I had once hesitated to try. Due to lack of experience, I got a bit injured on my knee after the thrilling experience, but I couldn't hide the excitement on my face. Anna reached out and helped me. That was our first encounter. We were strangers passing by, but we had a pleasant conversation. She thought of me as another extreme sports enthusiast. After adding me as a friend, she shared many videos and photos with me. We occasionally went rock climbing, surfing, and skiing together. The few months we spent together were more exhilarating than the first half of my life. Anna introduced me to her friends, slowly deepening my sense of belonging to this world. Once, after we became familiar with each other, one of Anna's close friends teased, "I've known her for so many years, with so many people chasing her, yet she's never brought anyone with her like this. You'd better hold on tight." I didn't respond to that. My previous marriage wasn't a bad experience, and I wasn't opposed to starting a relationship naturally this time. One day, during a rock climbing event, the safety gear failed, and she got stuck midair. At that moment, I couldn't explain why, but even though I was almost hit by falling rocks, I swung over and saved her without hesitation. Maybe it was the suspension bridge effect, but she kissed me on the lips the moment I saved her. A fleeting kiss. When we landed, I followed my heart and formally confessed to her. Anna's clear eyes reflected my own image. After a long while, she said, trembling, "No wonder Gina said today was my lucky day." Chapter 12. After we got together, Anna was almost always around me. She memorized all my likes and dislikes and refused to let me interfere with her daily life. Even when we were briefly apart, she would report every little detail to me. Our friends often said that her thoughtfulness and care for me were almost inhuman. They couldn't imagine how a wild, adventurous girl like Anna could be so clingy in a relationship. But I was the only one who noticed Anna's hidden Yandere side. Her possessiveness was extremely strong, even to the point of obsession and madness. She couldn't even tolerate me having normal conversations with other women. But Anna hid it well. All the undercurrents of her emotions were carefully concealed beneath her gentle facade. Until one day, I accidentally found the diary she kept hidden in a drawer. It was filled with an overwhelming, intense love for me. She had even chosen to use pain to control her emotions. I once saw her in the bathroom, cutting her wrist, leaving streaks of blood. I had always been accustomed to reciprocating the same amount of emotion I received, but Anna's feelings had gone beyond my understanding. I couldn't keep up. Continuing down this path would destroy us both, so I broke up with her. Surprisingly, she didn't beg or harass me. The following year passed quietly, but every time I woke up in the middle of the night, I would recall the scene in the bathroom. People are complicated. We can't just accept everything, nor can we be completely selfish. Then, one day, I received an email from a ski resort. There was a graffiti wall there, and Anna and I had both participated in a one-year activity. The ski resort promised to send us updated photos of the graffiti wall every year. It was a promotional tactic, but also carried beautiful memories. I opened the email and stared at it for a long time. There were no traces of other visitors. It had become Anna's personal diary. The email was filled with detailed records of her life each week. She said she had listened to me and went to see a therapist. She said she had adopted a large orange cat and spent her free time taking it out to enjoy the sun. She said she had collected many rare horror films and hoped that one day, we could watch them together. She said her cooking skills had greatly improved, and her friends all praised her. She said her wounds had scabbed over, and she wouldn't hurt herself anymore. A lump seemed to form in my chest, making it hard to breathe. I wasn't sad when I divorced Willow. I wasn't sad when I broke up with Anna either. So why now? All of a sudden, the sorrow hit me after the fact, threading through my heart. It turned out, I missed her too. Chapter 13. I said, "Anna, take a deep breath, and look into my eyes." She obediently followed my instructions. The warm yellow neon light from outside flowed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating her current helpless and fragile state, as if she were falling into an abyss. I cupped her face in my hands, speaking slowly, each word deliberate. "It's precisely because I love you so much that I decided to wait until after the wedding to tell you this. You're afraid I'll leave you, and I'm afraid that because of my past, you'll hold it against me." Anna's wet eyes filled with confusion. She sniffled and said, "You know I'd never think like that." I said, "Of course I know." I knew her too well. She would only fall deeper into anxiety, constantly fearing that I would leave her, and at its worst, she might hurt herself again. All I could do was give her enough security. I said, "But I don't want anyone to influence our wedding." "You wanted to know what I said to Willow, didn't you?" Anna tightly pressed her lower lip, lifting her head to look at me. I said, "I told her I love Anna very much, and I hope you stay away from us. Don't try to sow discord between us." I asked, "Now do you understand how much I love you?" Her eyelashes fluttered, as if she had become shy. She weakly leaned into my arms, responding softly. I asked, "Still worried?" She nodded, her voice filled with grievance. Yes, I'm worried. I sighed in relief. This was what I got for indulging her, but I was willing to spoil her. I leaned down and kissed her cool earlobe. I smiled and said, "So, shall we enjoy tonight properly?" Anna trembled, and the next moment, my arm muscles tightened. I carried her back to the bedroom, patiently, again and again. I made her feel my love for her. Chapter 14. Makoto stood at Willow's door for a long time. The fatigue and sorrow were etched deeply in his brow and eyes. He sighed, raised his hand, and input the code to unlock the door. Today was Willow and George's wedding anniversary. The decorations inside were exactly the same as 5 years ago. A vase with freshly changed flowers, a chessboard on the table, unfinished, from a game George hadn't completed. In the closet, George's clothes were neatly hung. Willow naively thought that George would come back eventually, but he was about to remarry. What exactly was she still holding on to? Makoto walked straight to Willow's art studio. Willow had the lights on, absorbed in her drawings, not even glancing at him. The wastebasket was full, with several crumpled draft papers scattered on the floor. The food on the table was cold. She hadn't touched it. She was stuck in here, drawing day and night. Makoto finally exploded. He shouted, "You're not going to the office. You're not eating. What exactly are you doing?" Willow's eyes were deeply bruised, but she didn't seem tired at all. Her voice was filled with longing as she said, "I'm designing the wedding home for me and George." Makoto froze. He remembered the pain of being betrayed when he had just divorced, with no one to share it with. When he snapped back to reality, he had already called Willow. To him, Willow would always be his safe harbor. Makoto knew that Willow had feelings for him, unable to reciprocate them. He had always felt guilty. That's why, when George appeared, he genuinely wished them well. He told George about Willow's favorite movies and novels, and shared her hobbies to help him understand her better. He even invited the four of them to travel together. But when he heard the news that they were together, he realized that the smile on his face was starting to fade. A voice inside told him, "This isn't right." This subtle feeling reached its peak on their wedding day, when he saw the simple text on the WeChat moment. He felt a lump in his throat. He couldn't help but wonder, will Willow really fall for someone else? Will she still care about me like she did before? That answer came to him in that phone call. Her voice was as caring and thoughtful as always. No matter what he said, Willow would immediately be there for him. Makoto sighed in relief. A smile unconsciously appeared on his face, but then he realized something was off. Willow was already married. He wasn't a bad person, so how could he keep thinking about someone else's wife? He just wanted someone to talk to. He had always seen Willow as a little sister. He couldn't just say that now, that she was married to George, and he wanted to chat with his little sister and she wouldn't be allowed. There was nothing inappropriate between him and Willow. Makoto thought this to himself, so he felt justified in asking Willow to come work as an assistant at his office, hoping that his ex-wife would think he was already involved with someone. He also asked her to help design his house, erasing any trace of his ex-wife's presence. Occasionally, Makoto would ask Willow to deliver documents to his house, and they'd casually discuss the house's design details. Willow agreed, and she seriously worked on the design, but Makoto couldn't read any guilt or unease in her clear, calm eyes. It was this very attitude that made him feel uneasy. He instinctively asked Willow, "You coming here? George won't mind, right?" Willow paused for a moment, then remained silent. Makoto felt a sense of discomfort rising in him. He had a premonition that the answer would not be what he wanted. Willow said, "My anniversary with my husband is coming up. I've finished the design, and your ex-wife isn't bothering you anymore, so I guess I can quit now." Makoto's mind went blank. The days of coming and going together reminded him of the time when they were inseparable. Now, he finally realized how precious Willow's feelings for him were. Makoto didn't want to let go. Chapter 15. After learning about their divorce, Makoto was initially shocked, but soon a wave of uncontrollable pleasure surged within him. He didn't care about the reasons behind their divorce. With George gone, he could now, without hesitation, pursue Willow. They had grown up together, childhood sweethearts. Wasn't it completely normal to support each other through tough times? Willow's parents also hoped he would take better care of her. They often hinted that they preferred him over George. After all, they had grown up together. It couldn't have been more fitting. For 5 years, Makoto hadn't dared to cross that line. He had been trailing behind her, stubbornly holding onto the role of a family member. He thought Willow would eventually see him again, but her condition worsened by the day. It was as if she had lost her foundation, living like a walking corpse. Why? They had known each other for over 20 years. How long had George been with her? How could Willow like him this much? It wasn't fair to him at all. In the private room, watching her argue wildly with Anna, Makoto finally snapped, "Have I not done enough for her? Why can't she tell right from wrong? Freya rolled her eyes, her tone full of sarcasm. Are you trying to make yourself feel better? If it weren't for you, would they have divorced? Stop lying to yourself and don't make other people the fool. He lied to himself. Wasn't Willow the one lying to herself? For 5 years. He had humbly tried to please Willow, only to endure her humiliation. Even his ex-wife mocked him, saying, "You're no different from me." Why should he bear the blame for their failed marriage? He couldn't take it anymore. Chapter 16. The tension that had been building in Makoto's mind finally snapped with a loud crack. He kicked the table, knocking it over, then grabbed the design sketches Willow had made and tore them to pieces. Furious, he yelled. Living like a saint while being a whore. What a joke. After all this, why are you still pretending to be pure? Are you telling me, when you found out I was married, you didn't feel anything? Are you telling me, when I invited you to be my assistant, you had no expectations? Are you telling me, when we were designing our new house, you didn't long for those moments when it was just the two of us? I don't know why you suddenly changed your attitude, but you must have wavered, right? Makoto's words pierced through Willow's mind, each one like a needle. Her head throbbed painfully, and her stomach churned. She couldn't stop herself from bending over and gagging. Her body was so weak, she seemed to be nothing but skin and bones. Her throat felt like it was blocked with a lump of cotton. She couldn't throw up, nor could she swallow. Even breathing felt like torture. Willow slowly looked up at Makoto. With red-rimmed eyes, she spoke slowly. Yes, I did waver, but before I could even reflect on what I had done, he had already given up on me. I don't even know when his love for me started to disappear. Do you know how terrified I was in that moment? Makoto had never seen her like this, so pitiful. He couldn't help but feel sorrow for himself. He said, "How long are you going to hold on? George is getting married to your best friend. You can't change that fact." Willow screamed hysterically. "Anna is not my best friend. She's a thief. George is my husband. He was meant to come into this world for me." Makoto raised his fist but then lowered it. He felt that Willow had lost her mind. Chapter 17. After saying it out loud, Willow became even more resolute in her thoughts. On countless sleepless nights, she kept replaying everything in her mind. Why did George suddenly transfer to her school? Why had George's family never shown up? Why, if he didn't like her, did he still force himself to get closer? Yes. Willow had seen how George liked her, so she knew very well. George hadn't liked her at first. His approach had seemed more like he was fulfilling a task. Willow had seen his helpless expression when she rejected him. She'd also seen him blushing when giving her gifts. He smiled at her, but his eyes were full of despair. At that time, Willow didn't understand. Curiosity was the beginning of her downfall. She hadn't expected to actually fall for George. When did George really start liking her? Was it when she said, "Just be yourself, I really like you"? Willow loved the real him. That day, George had held her tightly, constantly repeating "thank you" over and over. As if she had saved his life, Willow's eyelid twitched. Whenever she tried to think about George's background, her mind became clouded, and she lost her sense of direction. Her sixth sense told her. To confirm her suspicions, there was only one way. Willow lay down in a bathtub full of water. The sharp knife reflected her bloodshot eyes. But at that moment, she appeared vibrant, full of excitement. Without hesitation, Willow cut her wrist. A large amount of blood spread through the water. As she neared death, a barely audible sigh echoed in her mind. If I had known this would happen, why did I even try in the first place? Chapter 18. The day before the wedding, I went to check on the venue setup. As I stepped out of the elevator, I suddenly felt a sense of unease. I was about to call Anna to tell her to be careful, when the elevator dinged, signaling it had arrived. I looked up, and 3 men wearing masks blocked the doorway. In the next second, they lunged at me, and the air around me was filled with a strong, irritating smell. Everything went black, and I lost consciousness. I woke up with a pounding headache. The first thing I saw was an unfamiliar ceiling. A sound of a door opening followed. I sighed silently. A clear, cheerful voice came from the door. "Are you awake? Are you hungry? I'll make you your favorite omelette rice." The familiar voice made me momentarily disoriented. The sound of chains rattling brought me back to reality. I looked down to see heavy shackles locking my hands and feet, as if I were a prisoner. I sighed, unable to understand how Willow had become a Yandere. I said, "Willow, people's feelings change. I don't like omelette rice anymore." She looked terribly thin. Her eyes, usually filled with a gentle smile like spring water, were now hollow and sickly. Willow paused for just a moment, then curved her lips into a smile. "It's okay. I'll make whatever you want to eat." A wave of exhaustion washed over me. How did we go from parting on good terms to this? I asked. "What do you want to do?" Willow's voice was light. She said, "I just want my husband to come home." I frowned. Sensing something was very wrong with her state, I said, "How long do you think you can keep me here? The groom has gone missing, won't they call the police?" "Willow, it's not too late to turn back now." We stared at each other across the space. Willow suddenly smiled. She said, "Honey, everything in this world is fake, but you are real. No one can find us." She walked closer, sat down on the floor with her knees hugged to her chest, and looked up at me. Her eyes sparkled with a longing and hopeful smile. She said, "We will love each other and stay together here forever." My heart nearly stopped. It took me a long time to find my voice again. I asked, "What did you find out?" Chapter 19. Willow didn't answer me, and just as she had said, it had been half a month. No one had found this place. The confusion in my heart grew heavier. With the advanced surveillance systems in place, there was no way they couldn't find a clue after so many days. Unless there was a force beyond this world interfering, could the system have malfunctioned again? Willow, like a patient who had regained hope, returned to her usual light-hearted self. Every day, she would excitedly push me around the house in a wheelchair. She said, "Look here, this is the study I designed for you. When you're tired from work, you can lie down in the rocking chair and rest. Here, this is the entertainment area. We can play chess or cards here in our spare time." She said, "This is the open kitchen. Didn't we always think the kitchen was too small for two people before? Now, it won't be a problem." I paused for a moment, realizing her intent. Willow was making amends. This was the new wedding home she had designed for us. I found it absurd. I asked, "Don't you think it's too late?" Willow paused. She said, "It's not too late. We still have a lot of time." I looked at her, my tone calm as I said, "I don't like you. No matter what you do, I won't like you. Even if you keep me trapped here. In the end, all you'll have is a corpse." As soon as the words left my mouth, a cool tear dropped onto the back of my hand. Willow was crying. In her eyes, I saw my own increasingly weak reflection. The false mask she wore shattered, revealing immense fear and confusion. She choked on her words. "What should I do? What should I do to get you back?" I shook my head. "Let go. We are just strangers passing through each other's lives. There's no need to pay such a high price." But Willow shook her head violently. "I won't. I've already felt the price of letting go once. George, to me, you are a home. You are oxygen. You are like tap water. I once thought you were just a part of everyday life, but now I realize, losing you, I can't live without you." The swirling, complex emotions within her were ultimately replaced by resolve. She raised her hand and wiped away the tears from the corner of her eye. She said, "I won't make the same mistake again." Chapter 20. I began making demands of Willow. To my surprise, she was overjoyed. I said I didn't like sitting in a wheelchair. So she unlocked my shackles. But since there were supernatural forces at play, I couldn't recklessly confront her. The apartment was on the 5th floor, and she had locked the door with a high-security anti-theft system, making it impossible to break in by force. So, she was confident that, no matter how much I wanted to leave, I was helpless in my current situation. Unfortunately, Willow's impression of me was still frozen in time. 5 years ago, after she left the house again, I went to the storage room. There, I found a window that could be pried open. The wall had enough footholds for a climber. Halfway up, I suddenly heard a loud rumbling sound from the ground below. Then the ground began to shake. I watched in horror as the wall cracked open. It was an earthquake. Suddenly, I heard the familiar mechanical voice in my head again. "Host, please follow my instructions to evacuate the danger zone." I didn't have time to be shocked. I just followed the instructions. I didn't know how long I had been running, but I suddenly heard sirens. They were heading towards the building. After I stopped them, I found out that the building had collapsed. Anna and Willow had stayed behind to save me, and they were both buried in the rubble, their fates unknown. I stumbled behind the rescue team to the site. Someone urgently gestured something to me, but I couldn't hear a single word. The system said, "Host, stay calm. They're still alive." I suddenly snapped back to reality. Right, there was the system, and it could save Anna. It seemed to know what I was thinking. It said, "Saving them doesn't come without a price. You have two choices. Option 1, save Willow. The conquest task succeeds, and you survive. Option 2, save Anna. The conquest task fails, and you die. Your existence will be erased. Sorry, host. The interests of the conquest target come first." I didn't hesitate for a second. I said, "I want to save Anna." The system hesitated for a second. It asked, "Do you know why I chose to bind with you in the first place? Because your will to survive is strong. You refuse to die so easily. But now, you're willing to give up your life for an insignificant bystander. George, have you lost your mind?" I was surprised to hear a fluctuation of emotion in its mechanical voice. I chuckled softly, my tone calm. I said, "What do you know?" Chapter 21. I've had a congenital illness since childhood. I couldn't jump, couldn't run, Even walking a few extra steps would leave me breathless. While the other children played wildly, I could only read or play chess, although I often had to take sick leave. I still liked going to school. There was a youthful energy there, something unique to my age. Unlike the dead, sterile ceiling of the hospital, the other kids were friendly to me. They privately called me young master. They admired my good family background, praised my manners, and said I was kind to others, but that was all. They would push and shove each other, but always acted cautious in front of me, afraid they'd hurt me. I had no friends. No one would be my friend. As my health continued to decline, I had to drop out of school and move into the hospital. Apart from taking medicine and undergoing tests, the most I could do was sit in a wheelchair and watch the dying tree outside my window. My parents visited me less and less. They had a new child. It was supposed to be a happy thing, but it only made me feel lonelier. Finally, after the last leaf fell from that tree, I slowly closed my eyes. The tree could wait for its rebirth next year, but I would never see the spring of my 17th year. Chapter 22. I was already dead in my original world. Even if I succeeded in my conquest, I couldn't go home. I had already accepted the gift of fate, marrying Willow and living a simple, quiet life. It was their detachment that gave me new inspiration. I didn't want to just get by anymore. I wanted to live a completely different life from before. I wanted to love someone with all my heart and also be loved back with all of theirs. Fortunately, I got both. I said, "What do you know?" I told the system. From the moment I closed my eyes, I was already dead. Coming to this world, no matter how long I live, is a bonus. Anna is not just some insignificant passerby. She is my lover, my wife. If I can save her, I've won. As soon as I finished speaking, a light appeared in the distance. It was the location where Anna was. I shouted to the rescue team. I heard her voice. While running, my knee was scraped by rebar, and my legs were cut by debris. The pain didn't slow me down in the slightest. I had to get to her in time. When the rescue team and I finally moved the debris off of her, Anna's hoarse voice also came out. She was calling my name. Luckily, she only had some scrapes and bruises. I breathed a sigh of relief and rushed to hold her tightly. I said, "Anna, I'm fine. Relax." Hearing my voice, she finally relaxed. Her voice trembled as she said, "Honey." My fingers traced her beautiful brows and eyes carefully. As I smiled, tears began to fall. I said, "Wife, let's go home." I steadily picked Anna up in my arms. The long period of darkness finally cleared at that moment. She nodded and said, "Okay, let's go home." Chapter 23. Willow. You've lost the bet. Willow discovered the secret of this world. To prevent her from committing suicide, the system reluctantly made a deal with her. They made a bet. 1 month later, Willow would have to make George choose to save her at the moment of life and death. After all, to survive, he had once completed the conquest task even though he didn't like her. This time, it would be the same. Willow was confident, but she was wrong. The system made her hear the full conversation. He would rather give up his life than save her. He would save Anna. Willow's pupils trembled violently. At the same time, a dull pain spread across her chest. Why did Anna deserve such precious feelings? She had come first. After all, George had come to this world for her. Willow's unwillingness turned into a tear at the corner of her eye. The system was merciless. According to the bet, your protagonist aura will be revoked, and your life and death will no longer affect the world's operation. George had already completed the conquest task. No matter what he chose, he would not be erased, but his resolve still shook the system. As compensation for deceiving him, he and Anna would live a smooth, trouble-free life for the rest of their days. The moment Willow's protagonist aura disappeared, a stone slab fell down. This also attracted the attention of the rescue team. She was seriously injured, fell into a coma, and was rushed to the hospital. In the final second before losing consciousness, she thought, if I had a second chance, would the outcome be different? Chapter 24. Willow woke up in the hospital, but the people here seemed unable to see her. She could only drift around like a lost soul. Suddenly, her gaze was fixed on something, and she couldn't look away. The person sitting in the wheelchair had a pale face, like paper. He weakly stared at the withered tree outside the window. His thoughts unknown, Willow held her breath and slowly approached him. He slowly met her gaze. He glanced at the woman sitting nearby, watching over him, and asked, "Can't she see you?" Willow tried to calm her emotions. She nodded and said, "They can't see me." George sighed in relief. His fingers slightly clenched. His voice was raspy as he said, "Are you here to take me away?" Willow froze for a moment, then replied, "That shouldn't be it." George let out a breath of relief and gave her a faint, relieved smile. He said, "Thank you." In the days that followed, they became friends. They would chat happily, but then George suddenly stopped talking. Willow saw envy and longing on his face. She turned and saw a paragliding advertisement playing on the TV. A person was soaring freely through the sky, arms outstretched. It was something Makoto would like. But George. She suddenly froze. George suddenly looked at her, his tone filled with longing as he said, "Do you think there's a next life? If there is, I want to try paragliding." Willow felt like she had been slapped across the face. A sour, painful feeling spread throughout her body. She could barely breathe. So, his love for her had started to fade from that moment. George had said he didn't like the wheelchair. George had said he liked to run. George had said he liked climbing mountains. George had said he wanted to try paragliding. And what had she done? If, back then, she had said she wanted to go with him, would he have always loved her? George waved his hand in front of her face. With a puzzled look, he asked, "Are you okay?" Willow slowly looked at him. Her voice hoarse and dry. She choked as she said, "Yes, in your next life, you'll have a healthy body, meet a girl who shares your interests, and you'll be happy together for a lifetime." George smiled awkwardly. After that day, his condition rapidly deteriorated. In the operating room, the doctors shook their heads helplessly. Out of the corner of his eye, George looked towards a certain spot, as if he had something to say. Willow bent down to listen. He was too weak to speak aloud, his voice barely audible. George asked, "Willow, will that person be you?" Willow froze. She remembered the system's words before she had passed out. The system had said, "How do you know we haven't given you a chance to start over?" Her throat caught, and her vision blurred as she desperately nodded. George smiled and slowly closed his eyes. At the same time, a mechanical voice echoed in his mind. "Hello, host. The Conquest System 003 is at your service. Your task target this time is Willow." At that moment, in the ICU room, the heart monitor emitted a sharp beeping sound. A tear slid down the corner of Willow's eye. His heartbeat gradually stopped.